Call to order the June 2nd regular Brattleboro Selectboard meeting. John, was the meeting properly warned?
Yes, Oscar, it was.
Thank you. The board entered into executive session at 5:30 p.m. and no decisions were made. Welcome, everyone. Board, are there any adjustments to the agenda? No.
None.
Chair's remarks. Yes, a few. The Twin Bridges Working Group with Hinsdale met on the 26th. We continue to make progress. We're meeting in a month, and Sue Fillion and Catherine Lynch are working together to prepare a matrix of concerns and possible solutions that we'll discuss at that meeting. The EMS Working Group met on May 27th with about a dozen members of the public, the fire chief and the assistant fire chief, and had an excellent discussion. Nell and I will report back to the full select board at our next meeting, June 16th. We had a couple rules changes to our last meeting, so there is now a prohibition on cell phone use by select board members at the table, though it does not apply to the town manager. And we've removed our 9:45 p.m. time limit. Since we've done that, I want to just remind the board about a few options we have as a board. One is that at any time in the meeting, a board member who is recognized to speak can move to adjourn, and with a majority vote, the meeting ends. That could happen at 9:45 p.m. or at any other time. There are also two other options that might be helpful. Anyone who's been to town meeting knows that you can call the question. If you want to take a vote on ending debate, it requires a 2/3 majority. It's not debatable, and on this board, that would take 4 votes. And the other procedural option that might be useful is a motion to limit debate. So you could make a motion to limit debate for another 10 minutes, for example, on an item. That also requires a 2/3 majority and is not debatable. So those are some options available to all the board members as we go forward. And that is all I have for Chair's remarks. Looks like we have 2 sets of minutes to approve for April 21st and May 5th. If someone would care to make a motion.
I move to accept the minutes from April 21st and May 5th, 2026.
Great, thank you. Amanda has moved to accept the minutes of April 21st and May 5th. Any discussion on the board? All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
That carries 5-0. Now, manager's comments. John?
Thank you, Oscar. I want to start tonight by noting the passing of 2 long-standing Brattleboro Fire Department members, Harold Bradeen and Robert Murray. Harold Bradeen served 47 years with the Brattleboro Fire Department in various roles, and Robert Murray served for 20 years, including in the role of assistant fire chief. Michaela Lafrac is bringing VPR's Vermont edition to Brattleboro for a live show at the Latches on Thursday, June 4th at 11:30 a.m. It's part of their Town by Town tour. She asked me to invite select board members to that event. We know that sharing a positive narrative about Brattleboro is an essential part of our town's rejuvenation, so please consider, anyone in the public, please consider attending and letting the world know why you think Brattleboro is headed in the right direction. Chief Evans went to Montpelier yesterday for the formal lighting ceremony for the Special Olympics torch run, along with representatives of the other 3 departments in the state where the torch run starts. The representatives for each department, along with many of the athletes, lit the individual torches for the 4 legs of the run throughout the state, all of which end at St. Michael's College, where the games will be played this year. The law enforcement torch run for Special Olympics is a global movement that has, for over 45 years, raised awareness and funds for the Special Olympics. Today, departments all over the state began the annual torch runs with the Brattleboro leg being run by Brattleboro police officers, our animal control officer, Vermont probation and parole officers, Vermont state police troopers, and I also ran it. Chloe Prouty graduated from the Vermont Police Academy on Friday. Officer Prouty began her career with us as a member of the Brattleboro Resource Assistance Team before leaving to attend the academy. She now returns to Brattleboro for more localized training, and you'll see her out on the street in the coming weeks, so please congratulate her when you see her around town. You may have seen recently that elements of the Vermont National Guard are being deployed. This includes 2 members from the Brattleboro Police Department, and we wish them a safe deployment and are looking forward to the day that they'll be back on patrol in Brattleboro. And finally, the 2026 abstract grand list has been lodged with the town clerk and is available on the assessor's page on the town's website.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Select board comments. Let's go around the table. Isaac, do you have any comments today?
Yeah, first of all, just wanted to ask for just a moment of silence in honor of the people who have served in the United States Armed Services who've lost their lives, just in honor of Memorial Day, which we just recognized. Thank you. Also wanted to just recognize on a lighter note that this is Pride Month for the LGBTQI+ community, and wishing folks who serve our town and to residents and visitors a happy Pride Month. It's also the day, today is the day that the regular newsletter came out from the town of Brattleboro, and was glad to see that in my personal inbox this morning. So thank you for that, to the town staff who's working on that. Wanted to remind folks that if you'd like to sign up for the town newsletter, you can just search for Brattleboro Newsletter and it will pop right up.
Thanks, Isaac.
Cool.
Amanda?
Thank you. Yeah, this is so fun, right? Okay, so Emma Davis, a local athlete, will be competing in the Special Olympics in Minneapolis in multiple events in swimming. And I think we should just make note of that and celebrate that we actually have a athlete from Brattleboro competing in there. And that'll be from June 20th to 26th. So if you see anyone in the Davis family or Emma, wish her luck. I also, the next time we meet, we will have a whole group of graduates from Brattleboro Union High School. The graduation is June 12th. And in anticipation of that, I want to wish every high schooler the best and a safe couple weeks before you graduate. And then also, probably someone will mention the ribbon cutting at the Amtrak station in this table. Will someone mention that?
I was going to mention it next time, but
Okay.
it'd be great if you...
Okay, yeah,
Please
make note of, the train's coming to town with our brand-new train station on June 24th. So, mark your calendars for that. It's a big deal for our town. There will be dignitaries, and there'll be more information coming from John at our next meeting, but stay tuned through media and your neighbors.
Thanks, Amanda. Peter?
I don't have any comments that haven't already been covered, so.
Great, thank you. Nell?
I was just, Oscar and I, like Oscar said, we had a working group meeting for the EMS subcommittee on Wednesday, and I really appreciated everyone who showed up and the conversation that we had. So I'm thankful for that.
Thanks, Nell. We're going to move to public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone from the public in the room or on Zoom to speak and comment on something that is not on today's agenda. A couple brief rules. Just please raise your hand. You'll be called to the microphone or unmuted on Zoom. And please make sure that you address your comments and questions to me as the chair and don't directly address members of the public or other members of the board or town staff. So, who would like to make a comment? Kate?
Hello, good evening. I'm Kate Traskis from Downtown Brattleboro Alliance. I have a few announcements. First, I'd like to say thank you and big appreciation to the Brattleboro Public Works Department. You may have noticed that our downtown flowers are out downtown, and the DBA could not do that without the support of the town. So thank you for that. We also have our First Friday Gallery Walk event this Friday, June 5th. Hope to see all of you there. All of these programs that we do really are about bringing community to Brattleboro. Beautification, placemaking is so important, and your support really matters. So the DBA has our spring and summer program appeal out. So thank you to community members and businesses who have already supported us. I also wanted to let you know that we have welcomed 15 UVM interns to Brattleboro. I was hosting them this morning in downtown. We had a great tour. We had lunch at Halo Hollow. We went to the Stone Church. We went to BMAC. So this is a group of young people that is here for the summer. They are being housed at SIT campus, some of them. Some of them are here and live locally. But it's a great group. They're really excited, and I hope that we will all do our best to welcome them here. Thank you.
Kate, I'm sorry, because I forgot, would you mind just mentioning the June 10th thing, since you've been an integral part of that?
Sure. On June 10th, the Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance is hosting an event at Retreat Farm. Burroughs and the DBA are partners in this event. This is really about bringing the outdoor rec business community together and elevating that sector here in southern Vermont. And so outdoor enthusiasts and business folks in all different sectors that sort of feed into and support the outdoor rec group are welcome. So there is information on VOBA, their website, and I believe there's also a Facebook event out there. So hope to see you there as that too.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Seth, what do we got?
And Millicent Cooley.
Hello, Millicent Cooley, District 9. Couple of things. First, briefly, I want to say that Oscar, along with Nell, I'm referring to the working group meeting that Oscar mentioned from last week. I thought it was really excellent. Excellent example of people listening and becoming more open and sort of bringing the temperature down, which is really needed, and I really appreciated it. And I'm very comfortable not doing the consultant thing. If that's what ends up getting decided, we need more information. But anyway, I'm very optimistic. It was a great meeting, and it was really well led. Two, I'm not comfortable with the recent meeting's decision to add additional hotel vouchers. I'm one of the people that supports human services spending consistently. I have asked opinions of a small handful of others, all of whom consistently support human services spending, and those people also said they were not really comfortable with this for some of the reasons that people have already said. One point of this that I feel really more strongly about is that the way that it appeared to me that the way the decision was made didn't really seriously consider all the parts or possible parts of the financial cost to the town. So there might be some estimates of police and fire EMS services that brings. There's rooms tax when you have voucher people taking hotel rooms. There's some amount of tax because they probably don't pay rooms tax. There's various revenue issues, property tax to the hotels, impact on what's the impact on local. Those are hotel rooms that tourists won't be able to take, and tourists spend money in a certain way. So then you times that by the number of vouchers and how long those will remain in effect. So I am hoping that the board would agree to revote on that issue, and whatever you decide to do, I will accept it. I am not speaking against the voucher program in general. I think it's great to want to take care of people, but it's really important to review the full cost of this decision before voting to add more the financial cost. I am on the finance committee. I would be happy to try to round up some of the cost data before your next meeting, if that will be helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Millicent.
Could I respond? I think something that could be worth noting, since I'm the person that made the motion, retrospectively, I wish that I hadn't accepted an amendment to a hard number, because without getting into it, the sentiment through the motion that I initially introduced was the sentiment I was trying to communicate. The entire motel program is going to see a reduction in rooms come FY '27 with Bill H938, and that's seeing a structure of a shifting of funding towards shelter houses. I was able to speak to Miranda Gray, and while, you know, this was more so informational, if the entire program is seeing a reduction in rooms, that wouldn't necessarily correlate to an increase in rooms in Brattleboro. And
I'm going to ask a point of
Yeah.
order because this isn't on the agenda.
I just wanted to
Technically,
respond. I'm done.
We should be moving
Yeah.
on. Okay.
I think we'll move on. Thank you, Millicent.
Thanks.
Seth?
Kurt Times.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, hallelujah. Thank you, Oscar, for your patience at the last meeting, trying to give me another chance to figure out my technical problems. My name's Kurt Dimes. I'm with Brattleboro Common Sense. I have a comment about procedures, which I think are very important. With RTM out of the way, there might be a bit more work for the select board. If anyone is familiar with the charter, you may recall the function, the definition of the RTM was to be a guiding body for the town and a source of ideas, proposals, and commentary. And the regular town meeting is not going to be as good as that as the RTM was beginning to be. It never really fulfilled that role. It was always under the thumb and a what's the word? A rubber stamp for the select board. But I have a solution there when an issue comes up, especially like homelessness, which occasionally grabs too much of your attention. That is, which keeps you guys up late at night, meeting after meeting. That's the time to form a committee. But when people say committee, they say, oh, that's just a way of, shoving it away and forgetting about it. A different kind of committee, a committee with a different hold on the public attention. I propose that you set up committee for homelessness or other pressing issues, which are demanding a lot of the public's attention, much like your own meetings. They should be at a regular, highly publicized manner, schedule, and with a regular Zoom feed, like you do. And then people could really feel that it's real and they're speaking to live people at a meeting. And I think that would be very good for you and good for the issue, a new kind of high-profile committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Any other? Yes, Isaac?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Oscar and Nell, for having that discussion about the EMS study. That's what Millicent did?
Yes, that's what
referencing
Millicent
that?
was talking.
And just that. Thank you for doing that work and getting that set up, and thanks for the town staff who supported that.
Thanks, Isaac. Any other comments from the public? Dick?
Dick DeGray, Brattleboro, I think District 8. A couple of things. John, I would hope you'd give us a quick update on the library. That was pretty shocking news after an extensive search to have our new library director leave us. And then I did read in the paper this evening that Sally Nix was going to be overseeing. I do have a little bit of concern as she is overseeing the finance department and then moving her down to the library. Not that she can't do that, but it's certainly a concern I have. I did see the chief on TV last night, and I said, oh, God, was that him? Yeah, I guess it was him. So the other thing that I was speaking to a board member about is getting the agenda out in another form, if there could be a press release or get it out, other than people going to the town website and looking up the agenda. That would be great if we could get it out, a press release for Saturday or Monday's paper. That would be great. And certainly, I have a concern about 3 businesses on Main Street closing this month, actually. They're closed up. I wish I had the answer as to how we could fix the problem. I know that, John, I met with you and had a nice meeting with you, talking about next gen. But this is a serious issue that I think should be on the board's radar, and start talking about it publicly and talking about what funds the town has available to give out for people who might be looking for loans to start a business. Because if you have too many holes, you have to have a reason to come to town. And each time somebody closes, it gives people less of a reason to come to town. And we certainly want to keep supporting the businesses that we have. So I have a huge concern, as I've been a big fan of downtown for a long, long time. The last thing I would close with, Bob Audette is leaving the paper. I missed his going away party on Friday. I had another commitment, a 20-plus year reporter for the Reformer. I can tell you, dealing with him firsthand as a board member, as the chair, I had many conversations with him, and I appreciated his fairness and the way he came across with his story. He wasn't an I gotcha reporter. He did a remarkable job, and he will be missed, certainly by me and probably the rest of the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. That's a good point about Bob. I was at his retirement party on Friday. I think Amanda was also. We saw some town staff there, a good group of people. As far as the agendas, I think we could certainly talk about how it would work to publish them in the paper. For anyone who doesn't know, you can get on an email list with the town where all the committee agendas, including the select board, get sent out as they come in. So that's one option for people who want to automatically get agendas. And then, John, are there anything we can say beyond what's been reported on the library director?
Really not much more than what's been reported. We had a resignation from the library director. We're now trying to figure out the next steps on that, and I look forward to hopefully announcing a new director at some point. And if anyone has other questions, they're welcome to meet with me and talk about it.
Thank you, John.
Oscar, I would just add too that Dick DeGray makes a good point about the town does have some funding for low-interest loans that people can apply for businesses downtown, and
Yes.
they can reach out to my office for information on that if they're interested. So.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're going to close public comment and move on to the consent agenda. John, will you take us through it?
Of course. You have 11 items on the consent agenda tonight. If you approve this agenda, you'll be approving and agreeing to sign a letter of commendation honoring Brattleboro resident Brandon Howe on becoming an Eagle Scout. You'll be designating Oscar Heller as Brattleboro's voting delegate to the Vermont League of Cities and Towns special meeting to be held on June 22nd. You'll be approving the award of the Church Street retaining wall project to Belco Excavating of Brattleboro for a low bid cost of $168,939 as planned for and approved in the FY26 and FY27 capital improvement plans. You'll be approving the award of the Akeley Road culvert replacement project to Neil H. Daniels Construction of Ascutney for a low bid cost of $275,000 to be funded by a V-Trans Structures grant and partially by the FY26 capital improvement plan. You'll be approving the award of a 2026 crack seal project to Seal Coating Inc. of Braintree, Mass. for a sole bid cost of $80,477 as planned for and approved in the FY26 and FY27 capital improvement plans. You'll be authorizing the reallocation of $8,000 within the Special Projects Fund to complete rehabilitation work at the Brattleboro Transportation Center. You'll be approving the upfit of 2 previously purchased police vehicles through a sole source contract with the 413 Upfitting of Bernardston for $53,200 as planned in the approved FY26 budget. You'll be ratifying the decision to increase the on-call construction services contract with SVE Associates of Brattleboro for the Brooks Memorial Library Improvement Project by $20,000 to be funded by the U.S. Treasury Capital Project Grant. You'll be reappointing Dan Adams as the Brattleboro Tree Warden for a term of 1 year. You'll be approving and agreeing to sign the dog warrant for the 214 as of Friday. You have an updated list before you, unlicensed dogs in Brattleboro. And finally, you will be approving the addition of new Animal Control Officer Skye Breckner to the list of municipal employees authorized to enforce municipal ordinances through the Vermont Judicial Bureau.
Thank you, John.
Welcome.
Does any member of the board wish to remove an item? Isaac?
No.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion?
Yes. I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Isaac has moved to accept the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries 5-0. Okay, we'll move ahead to unfinished business. One item, which is the Plenty Park India Masala House application, and I'll turn it over to John.
Yes, thank you, Oscar. Rec and Parks Director Carol Lalott, unfortunately, fortunately for her, she's on vacation. Unfortunately for us, she's not here tonight, but after your last meeting, she went and met with Madan, the owner of the India Masala House, to work out like a scaled back approach for what we had discussed at your last meeting. And in their conversation, they came to a different sort of pilot project to more or less test this concept out for this summer. And the details of that, Carol put in her memo to the board, which is in your backup materials on page 36. And in this proposal, it would be, the restaurant would use the park more or less like any other renter of a park does in the town. For this particular pilot program, it would be just for the summer of 2026 season, a maximum of 2 days per week where the restaurant would try this out in Plenty Park, leaving 5 days a week for people to see the mural and be up close to that. We would charge the restaurant $50 per rental day for the use of the park. Alcohol would be a separate thing if the restaurant chose on some of these events to serve alcohol. They would have to come to you to get an alcohol permit through the normal process. There would be, much of the other parameters would be the same as was discussed last week, so portable tables and like a rope barrier kind of thing to separate the use. I think that's pretty much it. The owner and owner's representative are here tonight if you have questions for them. And I would ask them to introduce themselves if you have questions for them. And that's about it. I'm happy to try to answer any questions as well that you might have. So.
Great, thank you, John.
Yep.
Well, board, we've discussed this once already, so let's go around, and if anyone, starting from the left, if anyone has comments, and once we've discussed it as a board, we'll go to the public. Nell, do you have any comments at this time?
I think I said most of my concerns last meeting, just that it's a public space, and so I was concerned about how conflict could arise between essentially the interests of a private business, because you guys are trying to offer a certain experience to your customers, and how people might use a park. That said, that doesn't mean that I don't think that, I think that this could be a beneficial thing as well. I think people will appreciate more outdoor dining in Brattleboro. I've received mixed feedback about it. What I've gone to look online for, when I've looked at the comments and kind of tried to gauge public opinion, it is pretty 50-50 down the middle from what I've been able to see online. I would be interested, I think, in seeing how a pilot would go, and if we get any kind of particular feedback one way or another from people. I do want to make sure that, the public still understands this is a public park and they have every right to use it. And, the public is also who would be dining at your restaurant outdoors. So I would hope that there would be a symbiotic way to approach this. And I appreciate the work that you, Carol, and John have all gone to trying to find, a workable compromise here.
Yes, no.
Thank you, Nell. Peter?
Yeah, so, it is a pilot program. I sort of left the last meeting about 70-30 in favor of this thing, and with this new information and the potential of just adding a little spark of vibrancy into our downtown with some outdoor dining right centrally located, I think shines a positive light on our town. I think it's certainly great for India Masala House, who also came in front of that board to borrow some of that low-interest money. So in order, I believe it was to do this. So, that aside, it's worth mentioning that there is a little bit of revenue that comes along with this. And I think that if we are going to commit as was one of our priorities to increasing revenues in this town, this might not be the massive chunk we are looking for, but this is something that can kind of start a small bites out of it and get us where we need to be eventually with people returning into our downtown. So I'll be voting in favor of this.
Thanks, Peter. Amanda?
Yeah, I appreciate all the work that went into it. I think, and after surveying the public, I think it's a win-win. And I appreciate the going back to the drawing board and figuring out a working relationship with the town.
Thanks, Amanda. Isaac?
Yeah, I agree. And specifically, Peter, thank you for what you just said. I am concerned about when I hear about businesses closing downtown. We've heard about when I was talking to business owners, a lot of them talked about how parking, people having to pay parking 7 days a week, but not just that, but the transition to the new system has been challenging. We heard about that at the last meeting. And also, people come to our community from other towns. They see people struggling with addiction, with other behavioral health challenges. It's good for us to have the visual of people dining outside. It's a really inviting thing that we can show to guests, to our community, and also to members of our community, that people want to be downtown, want to be out there eating and enjoying a meal. So I'm supportive of this. I do have a couple of questions I can ask either now or after for the owner, if that's
Sure, let's ask them now. This is
Okay.
a good time.
Yeah, so one of the concerns has been the potential obstruction of the view of the mural, and wanted to hear from you about your thoughts in terms of, are you imagining like partitions going up that would, or like, how sometimes a place might put out like a temporary wall so that people of separation? Are you imagining something like that which would obstruct the view of people dining outside and view of the mural, or do you imagine it just being open?
And I want to welcome you to the meeting, and if you just say your name for everyone watching at home, that would be
Good
great.
evening. My name is Madan Rathore. I have not decided anything. Just the way it is would be. I'm not touching anything. Thus I have no plan to put anything against it.
Good. Yeah, I think that we've heard from the public that people want to be able to see the mural.
Yeah.
So anything we can do to facilitate that. And the other thing is, if you have tables out there, chairs, umbrellas, would you be taking those in? Just want to confirm that you'd be taking those in at the end of every rental?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you.
I will.
Those were my only concerns.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Isaac. My comments are that it sounds like a pleasant, nice idea. For me, the weight of the argument cuts in favor of the public access to the public space. And I think that making such a longer-term grant of a public space to a business like this, I think for me falls on the other side of the line of how I'd like those spaces to be used. I think I would feel differently if it was a one-off event along the lines of, it's a holiday, we want to do a special brunch for a day in the park, but this sort of regular grant of the space, for me, is not to my preferences for the use, so I plan to vote no on this. Yes, we might as well. Would someone like to make a motion for structural purposes? And then we'll hear from the public.
I'm happy to make a motion.
Okay.
Yeah. I move to authorize the Brattleboro Rec and Parks Department to work with Indian Masala House on a pilot program to rent Plenty Park as presented.
Okay.
Is that
Amanda,
okay?
yes. Amanda has moved to authorize the Brattleboro Recreation and Parks Department to work with the India Masala House on a pilot program to rent Plenty Park as presented. Let's hear from the public. Any comments? Dick? And then Kate.
As I was looking through this, Dick DeGray, Brattleboro, the changes, I didn't see hours of operations, which I think at the last time we spoke about this was 11 to 10 o'clock at night. It doesn't look like there was any change in that, any restriction in that, which I believe that there should be. I am not actually in support of this. I believe when you have a space, green space downtown, and we're encouraging living downtown, and I know the people that live downtown. As a former business person, I can tell you one thing you don't want to do is alienate your patrons, the people in the town, your potential customers. And I think that that's what's going to happen here. I know I'm not going to frequent the restaurant or go to the restaurant because of this. And I'm disappointed that the owners wouldn't realize that a lot of work went into the mural. A lot of emotional feelings are tied into that mural. And if I was a business person, I'd say, you know what? I don't think it's worth it to move outside. And the other thing, I know one thing I wouldn't be doing, even if I thought about going to that restaurant, I know how hot it gets in Plenty Park. So I certainly wouldn't be sitting outside. I wasn't clear if there was going to be any umbrellas over the tables or even how many tables would be out there. I would certainly like those questions asked. It looks like this is going to be passed, but it's always nice to get your opposition. And I certainly am concerned. I know that Nell talked about potential conflicts with people using the park and people, because there can be. That's certainly, we do have people that every now and then get agitated in the park, and they play music and they do all kinds of things. And I know if I was sitting there having dinner, I certainly wouldn't appreciate that activity. So there's a potential for as many things to go wrong as there could go right. But if you could answer those couple of questions about the time and maybe restricting the time to make it later on in the afternoon. I don't know if you have that ability to do that, to amend the time open. And it didn't say here how many days a week that they would be open if it's going to be 7 days a week. So
2.
if you can answer those, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. Yes, this memo is for 2 days a week, but the questions about hours of operation, I think, is for you.
Yep, and I think the intention was that was one of the things that the restaurant would be trying out. So what are the most efficient times to be open? And so it was written to have that flexibility in there.
Okay. And then, are there any plans for umbrellas or shade or awnings like that? That's a question for you. You don't have to have an answer for that, but if you do.
Yes, we are planning to put on
Yes, they're planning to put on rails for people listening at home.
lunch and dinner.
And then number of tables, has that been discussed?
Somewhere around like 5 tables, probably small one.
Okay.
That's the
Approx-
space that I feel like.
Approximately 5 tables is the answer. I'm just repeating so that it's picked up by the broadcast. Okay, any other comments from the public? Kate?
Thank you. Kate Traskis, downtown Brattleboro. I'd like to applaud you in your decision to approve this proposal. As the director of the downtown program, we often do programming in public spaces. In fact, most of what we do is in a public space. And there is I think, understanding in the kind of the contract of if you're in a public space, everybody is welcome. And so for me, this is such a positive signal, as Peter mentioned. What I hear a lot about is, I wish that there was more outdoor dining in Brattleboro. I wish that there was anything happening past 5 o'clock when all of the things close. And so having people in our downtown, in a public space where they can be seen enjoying our downtown is so important to what that signals about being a place that is open for business. Also, it's patio season. It's deck season. All over Europe, every plaza and piazza has outdoor dining, right? You're going to see cafe tables everywhere. And this is what we want. This is what people enjoy this time of year. This is what we could be. And so I absolutely 100% am in support of this, and I would love to see more of it in our downtown. And I would love if we could activate more spaces to invite more people. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Yes, Tina. And then we'll come back to the board.
Dina Chadwick, District 9, Brattleboro, obviously. I just want to speak in support of this restaurant opening up. One of my favorite things to do when I travel is find a place that is downtown and has outdoor dining. You know, I expect to hear noise. I expect to see people mulling about, you know, maybe even playing music, and that's the joy of it all. You know, it's like, oh, look what they're doing. Oh, they're skateboarding down that way. It is fun, and I think it brings excitement to our downtown. I recognize that it's, you know, a park, but we have such limited space in Brattleboro unless we start, you know, taking up parking and getting rid of parking. There's not any place to really do this in town without blocking the sidewalks. I was recently downtown on Memorial Day weekend. I had a staycation. For the weekend, I wanted to see what Brattleboro had to offer, and they blocked off Elliott Street for the Morris dancers. And that was like so fun to see them all out there dancing, and it brought a lot of people to this community. I think this would be a net positive. As for the mural, half of it's already blocked by trees and leaves right now. And you can't see it. I'm downtown all the time. You cannot see that full mural. And I want to change the narrative a little bit, that these tables, these 4 to 5 tables, will actually bring people closer to see it. And, you know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Some people, you know, care for it and think it's beautiful. Some people don't. So, you know, art is subjective that way. But I want to say that this restaurant's going to bring people closer to it so they can get a close-up look. And, I mean, 2 days a week, that's nothing. It's nothing. And I just want to remind the board that one of your priorities was economic development. So think about that when you vote. You know, this is helping support a business in town when 3 of them are already gone this month. Three businesses downtown, and a gaping hole down where the Sam's building is, and another restaurant that is holding on by their teeth right now. So just think about that when you make your vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Dina. Okay, let's come back to the board. Final comments? If not, we have a motion on the table. None.
Ready to vote.
No?
I just realized, through what Dick was saying, I had made an assumption, but I'm not sure that it's actually stated in our backup materials. But is this agreement for the use of it? I'm going to call it a terrace because I don't know what else to call it, but the stepped up portion?
Yeah.
It's for that space, right?
Correct.
That's what I assumed, but I did just want to reiterate that.
John, that's correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, yeah, because that, to me, the importance of this is that you are allowing for multiple, what could be viewed as conflicting interests to have their interests represented. And so there's public access to the park, and there is an understanding that, you know, a business using a portion of the park does not disallow the public from being there and does not essentially mandate how the public acts beyond our like social contract of how you act in public. And it allows for the restaurant to figure out if this is a feasible thing for them to do and if it's a profitable thing for them to do. And so I do appreciate the rephrasing of it as a pilot, because some of the earlier conversation we had at the last meeting was about, you know, if this is something that's in the interest of the restaurant, how can it not be to the detriment of people who want to use the park? And I think this will allow the restaurant to figure out if it is in their interest, if this is something people want to, you know, if people want to eat outside and if it's worth the effort for you guys to do this. So that's where I'm coming from. And I'm glad that I do properly understand that it's for the terrace and not the entire park. Yep.
Thank you, Nell. All right, board, are you ready for your vote?
Yes.
Amanda has moved to authorize the Brattleboro Recreation and Parks Department to work with the India Masala House on a pilot program to rent Pliny Park as presented. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That carries 4-1. Thank you all. Okay. We will move ahead to regular business. The first item is to announce committee vacancies, which I'll do briefly. I know we've been doing a bunch of this recently, but the reason this happens now is because most of our town committees have terms that expire at the end of June. So we have a big round of vacancies, and I'm sure everyone on the board will agree that joining these town committees is a really valuable way to contribute to the town. It's also a great way to get experience with town government and to learn how things work. And it can be a lot of fun. Also, it can be really frustrating. So you'll have to roll the dice.
But mostly fun.
Mostly fun, yes. Okay, here are the current vacancies. There are 3 vacancies on the ADA Advisory Committee, 3 vacancies on the Arts Committee, 2 vacancies on the Budget Advisory Committee, 3 vacancies on the Citizen Police Communications Committee, 3 vacancies on the Conservation Commission, 1 vacancy for a Design Review Committee alternate, 3 vacancies for the Development Review Board, 3 vacancies for a Development Review Board alternate, 3 vacancies of various terms for the Energy Committee, 3 vacancies for Fence Viewer, 3 vacancies for the Honor Roll Committee, 1 vacancy for Inspector of Lumber, Shingles, and Wood, 2 vacancies for the Nelson E. Withington Fund Advisory Committee, 1 vacancy on the Planning Commission, 4 on the Recreation and Parks Board, 2 on the Senior Solutions Advisory Council, 1 on the Traffic Safety Committee, 2 on the Tree Advisory Committee, 2 vacancies for Weir of Cole, and that's it. And the procedure for applying to fill these vacancies, you can go to the website at brattleboro.gov/boards-committees, and there's an online form you can fill out there. And you can also, I believe, John, submit a paper application at the town manager's office?
Yep, come to the town manager's office.
Great. And if you have any questions, town manager's office is the place to go.
Correct.
Great. I will ask if there's any comments on the vacancies. Seeing none, we'll move ahead. All right, FY '27 parking budget presentation by Police Chief Jeremy Evans.
Yep, and so while the chief is coming up to the table, I'll just say that at your May 19th board meeting, you discussed the FY '27 parking budget. There were several changes discussed, and then those were looked into, and the chief wrote a memo up addressing some of those, which he may talk about. And what we're really looking for tonight is approval of the parking budget, if possible. You do have time at your next meeting if you continue to have questions or want to make additional changes. But Chief Evans is here to address the budget.
Thank you. Welcome, Chief Evans. Glad to have you with us.
Happy to be here.
Is there anything you'd like to particularly present from your memo, or would you rather just take questions?
I'd rather just take questions if you have it, I think.
Then let's do
I've
that.
already got the memo, so.
Excellent. All right, board, maybe I'll start this time. I have a few questions. So we're in the context of a year where we're probably going to end up at a deficit in this year's budget. And there are some concerns I have, and some of these may be questions for you or for John, I'm not sure. Some questions I have about the budget. There are a couple items in here, the rental income and the permit revenue, that look a little optimistic, particularly permits. We're on pace for something more like 110 or 120,000. We're also down in fines and fees, but we've been understaffed, and I can imagine those bouncing back. But if rentals and permits don't hit these numbers, that's a gap we'll have to worry about. And then the other question here is that this budget is written, it doesn't balance. It's about 120K in deficit already. Just if every number in here comes out exactly right. So I'd like the board to at least have the conversation about, there are no changes to fees in this budget. Do we want to consider that, or are we comfortable going ahead with a year where we may run another deficit? And a little bit of framing there is that I do remember last year when we did the big hike, a lot of people said, we get it, this is necessary, but maybe it would have been better if you had been doing small yearly increases all along to avoid a big jump every 10 years. So it may be that to make this budget balance, we should consider and try to model some small rate increases, and then that also fits into increasing them slowly and responsibly over time. So those are my questions. As far as questions for John or Jeremy, it's really, I think, how confident are we in the bounce back for permits and the increase in rental space, or is that something we want to mess with in the budget?
I can tell you that the numbers that we gave you here, we did our best to go back through and look for what we thought was a reasonable mark for us to hit. I can tell you I grabbed some of the figures in the transaction logs this afternoon that show us up significantly in every category, in every one of the sectors downtown, except for the Depot Street lot, which was a very small amount lot anyway, but that's been heavily impacted from the construction. So expect that to not be showing much for us right now. But I can tell you that like the figures we're showing from this year over last year, our figures for this year have already significantly surpassed last year's whole year. And we still have a month left that we're looking at. So not only in the income, but also in the transactions that we've seen. So significantly more transactions as well. So I see those both as a positive for us moving forward. The rental space, John might be able to speak to a little bit more, but we definitely expect that to move up as we're able to fill the building up.
And I can add detail to that. So right now, we have about $28,000 that we know, that we're confident we'll have for the whole year, and that is $20,000 for Dottie's, $6,000 for the book space, and $1,000 to $2,000 for the mover. So we're in discussions with other potential tenants for the other spaces, and so we hope to be in the $35,000 range for those other spaces, and that will put us at this budget. That's where this budget is derived from.
So when thank you,
Yep.
both of you. And none of these questions are, not trying to put you on the spot or have you have the answers on the fly.
No,
but,
it's fine.
Okay. The FY26 actuals in here, how far through the year is this?
These are April numbers.
Okay.
Through the end of
So
April.
10 months.
Yep.
And so the figures
Yes.
I'm speaking to too, because that could be, I want to make sure we're on the same page, obviously. The figures I'm speaking to are the figures we're getting for each one of the parking zones.
Right.
So the figures that I'm telling you are up in all categories on, those are the meter fees, if you will, not the permit fees.
Right.
So we're seeing a significant increase in all of those over last year, and that includes the fact that we did more days during the holidays, that we had free parking, and that we had some significant time with changeover from the new software and hardware this year. That was a little longer than we anticipated, and being down one enforcement person for a fair amount of time.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm not going to hog the floor. Amanda, any questions?
Just to say thank you for putting this together, and also, as you mentioned, there was a transportation center switcheroo, like the substation change. Like there was just a lot of disruptions that I imagine, like system change and stuff that would make sense for, sometimes when things skip a time, it just reflects on the budget. But what I really want to talk about is the Anywhere permit. I see the Anywhere permit being potentially really revenue beneficial. I think one of our community members spoke about it last time, about, people investing in it's like a pass. It's like a ski pass or a membership to somewhere. It wouldn't probably be every resident who chooses to do that, but there may be a decent handful of people who do choose it, and it could bring in some immediate revenue that would be great. So the logistics of that, I know like the timing of it, whether we'd have to like chalk tires again or what other kind of form, but I would like to look into that as a potential. I would buy one. Not that
We could,
it's all about me,
definitely.
but I'd buy one.
It would require an ordinance change, I believe, because of the permit. And we would definitely have to spend some time on exactly how much that permit would cost. I think it'd be significantly more expensive than any permit we currently have, because it would have to go on the most expensive parking spots, obviously. And we don't have a permit for those right now, and that would all be more expensive than any permit we have currently. But it is something that we could look at in the future here.
And it would just be for a 2-hour limit on any parking.
Yeah, we could.
Depending on where
spot.
you're parked, right? So I think if you're using your Anywhere thing to park at the parking garage, then you would just be there for the day. If you wanted to park on Main Street, then it would be 2 hours. I sort of like the idea of this Anywhere parking permit. I think the functionality of it is and the execution of it is going to be unwieldy, though I like the idea, but then again, if it's the most, if we charge a premium for it, maybe the squeeze is worth the juice, but like, I'd still have to like kind of suss out how we're gonna put a time limit on somebody with an anywhere permit that's only gonna be downtown for 2 hours. How do you govern that? I don't know.
Thank you, Peter. Amanda, do you have other questions or?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Isaac?
I came to the last meeting with a whole lot of angst about the parking system, informed by lots of comments from members of the public. I think I saw one post with like 60 comments with different suggestions about improvements. And after hearing the presentation and comments from town staff and the discussion in the public, I actually went out and, I was thinking about Oscar's concerns around the finances, but then we also have this user experience, the experience of people in Brattleboro using the parking system. And I went out and I actually took one of the concerns. I went to see for myself, and I parked. I tried it with the mobile app. I tried it with the machine, and I didn't see that issue. So what I want to encourage people to do is when you get frustrated with if you get frustrated with the parking system, take some screenshots, document what exactly happened. Did you use the mobile app? Were you using the kiosk? If there's something that's specific that needs to be fixed, like, we can work on fixing that. I think that part of the problem is that we run into challenges and then we're just like, oh, the whole parking system is horrible, I'm never using it again. And what would be really useful is really specific data. So that if you don't know who to write to, you can always find my email address and the other select board members' email addresses on the town website. But let's work together to make these improvements. I support this parking budget. I support what you've come up with $1,000 more for signage. That's been one suggestion. That's based on input from the public. And let's give this a go. And in a year from now, we'll have more information in terms of the finances and whether we need to make further adjustments. But I'm comfortable with this, and I'd be happy to make a motion in support.
Okay. Well, you're welcome to make a motion at any time, but we could also finish going around the table.
That sounds great.
Okay. Peter, any other comments?
I was gonna say, I've seen, and forgive me, I don't, the new guy that's doing meters, what's his name?
Kevin.
Kevin, all right. I've seen
Kevin put
him
me right on
around.
the spot there. That's right.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Thought that'd be a low-hanging fruit one. But I see him around a lot, so, I know that there's an increased, a couple of more feet and eyes on expired times and things like that. So I do fully expect, with fully staffed now, that number to begin to rise. He seems to be doing a really good job. He's also, I have to say, in the few interactions I've had with him, he's completely kind, he's courteous.
Nice.
He's very well public facing. He's very talking people through things. I've just kind of watched him operate a minimal amount of time, so he seems like a really good guy for the job. Nice. I like the direction of where the rentals are going. So I too am in favor of this budget as presented. And we can always explore different ways to kind of keep that enterprise fund going. But yeah, so thank you for all that.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Peter. Nell?
I was just curious, off of, John, what you had explained, and these might be ignorant questions on my end, but when you say we have 28 that we're confident for, 20K for Dottie's, 6 for the book, and 2 for the mover, are these new tenants? Like, is this stuff I've just been oblivious to that I'm walking right by every day?
Mm-hmm. Relatively.
Cool.
Like within the year? Within 12-month
Yeah.
period? Yeah.
Yep. Since the rehab has completed in the
Great.
past year.
And discussion with possible other tenants. So if we have 28 that we're confident on and we feel, good that might be continuing, that puts us in a good position for what we have listed for, $10,000 for the FY26 budget, but we jump up to 66 in 27. And my understanding was that the substation was taking up like about a third of the commercial space.
Or less.
Yeah.
And so more so what I'm asking is, out of what isn't rented, do we think that's gonna give us another, like, essentially, what, like 40,000 in FY '27?
We're thinking, 35, 38,000, something like that. I don't know exactly. We're in negotiations now.
Okay, and
about
the
that.
rate works out for what space is available left over after all those other existing. Cool. I mean, that was what, I started looking at this stuff. I was looking back at it when Oscar brought up those questions. But other than that, I don't have much to say. I appreciate all the time that went into this. And I was thinking about the Anywhere permit. My brain was like, what if you could register it with the app so that it had a time on it? But part of why people, I assume, would want a permit is so they don't have to deal with the app. So I don't, I think like Peter said, I see the value in it, and I can also imagine the administrative cost behind that. So it's not something I have strong opinions on, but those are all my questions for the budget, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Nell. So I just want to follow up a little bit at the end, just to explain why I'm concerned here. It's sort of, well, to take one example, right? Our actuals for permit stickers were 120K, 140K, then we raised the prices, and now we're on pace for 100K, which doesn't totally shock me if people started buying less or behavior changed. So if we come in at 100K for FY '27, that's already a $90,000 hole. The budget is already 120K in the red. I can sort of imagine the bounce backs on revenue, on fines, like the rental space. That's a relatively small amount, and if things go well, it could work out fine. But I feel like we're allowing ourselves to feel sort of disconnected to this because it's its own fund and it has some cash in the bank and stuff like that. But at a certain point, when we run out of cash, we just have to transfer money out of the general funds, and we don't want that. Yes, John.
And so we're not really at risk of having to transfer money out of the general fund other than the transfer out that's already in the budget. And that's because in this budget, we've accounted for a $285,000 depreciation. So and that's important for informing you all that we're charging enough revenues to cover the long-term, the true costs of the enterprise. Mm-hmm. So if you back that out, this budget is $161,000 to the good. So from a cash standpoint, we're not needing to look to the general fund. But what we are doing is we're taking out of our hides on the long-term replacement costs, and we aren't making enough yet to be building that capital fund that I think we should do as this gets back on its feet and we're more profitable in the long term.
Totally. And, if we end up 90K down on permits and 40K on meter revenue and little bits here and there, it would not be a shock to run cash negative for the
Even
year.
with that, we'd be 30,000 to the good. So, I mean, we have some buffer in there, and, that's running those straight numbers, that's what it is. Who knows, we could have a complete downturn in the economy and nobody's parking. So who knows, it's really,
Sure.
This is a plan. It's our best estimate for fiscal '27, and it may be wrong.
Okay. Let's hear from the public. Dick?
Dick DeGray, Brattleboro. I don't think it's really appropriate to approve a budget that has a deficit in it. I asked a question 2 weeks ago, it didn't get answered. Is about how much is the town paying for the rental space in the transportation center? Not one of you has asked that question. I don't believe the town is paying any money for the rental space, and it is a enterprise fund. So the town should be paying the enterprise fund for the rental space. Now, that's certainly going to affect your general fund budget when you put your budget together, but the reality is, it shouldn't be free space. And we're running a deficit, and we're letting the town use the transportation center for free. And that's wrong, and it's inappropriate. I would think that if the parking fund wanted to rent space in the municipal center, the board would say, okay, we've got to charge you some rent for the space. And it's the appropriate thing to do. We should not be approving this budget. As for the anywhere parking pass, you know, you came here and it's like, okay, we'll play these. There's no innovative thought. So we came up with an idea to say, here, let's look at this. And it's not just going to come together like that. It's going to take a little bit of effort to do it, but it's worth doing it. How do we mark the cars up on High Street that don't have meters up there? How does the parking attendant go up there and say you're only parking for 2 hours? So you got to try to think a little bit out of the box. I said at the last meeting, maybe you need to drop the permit fees down a little bit to try to get more people to buy them rather than to raise them. A novel concept. Because if somebody doesn't buy one, I'd rather get some money from somebody than no money from anybody. So I definitely think you should be charging whatever that is, but you should be putting money in here from the municipality for the rental space. That's totally inappropriate for us not to charge the town to use a building that's an enterprise fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Kate? Were you raising? Half?
I mean, I'd just say that it's an interesting idea to charge the department that's running the parking system to have a space in the parking system. So, I mean, we could slice and dice that, I don't know, but it seems like it's the police department that's operating the parking system. They need a place to be. We need a place for people to go do their parking permits and everything else. Why would we charge ourselves for that? I don't understand that, but that's.
Well, maybe, yeah. Let's go to Kate, and we can put that on our list.
I didn't hear kind of the sidebar with John talking to you, so if you could.
I think I'm sorry you weren't able to hear it, that it may not be necessary for the police department to charge itself for an office out of which it partially runs the parking operation and fund. But let's put a pin in that question for now and hear from Kate.
Kate O'Connor, Brattleboro. I'm going to agree with Dick. And on the flip side, if you look at expenses, we're paying DPW $12,000 to maintain the parking system. So if the argument is the town doesn't have to pay itself rent, then is the town paying the expenses for the transportation center? Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
It doesn't make sense. It needs to be one or the other. And I think we had a big argument a couple select boards ago about the enterprise fund being reimbursed for I don't know if it was the janitor or the custodian who was going and cleaning up the transportation center. That was very clear, like we're going to divvy up that cost amongst what buildings he goes in. So I just think I agree with Dick.
Thank you, Kate. John?
And on that, we can either account for it in this fund or in the parking fund. We'd have to move a DPW employee into this budget as opposed to doing a transfer. Again, it's just kind of how you do the accounting here. I don't think it changes the relationship on the funding for the town.
Well, I think the one thing it changes is the funding coming from the ratepayers versus the taxpayers. That's sort of the balance. But I personally don't.
No, because it's in the transfer, so it's.
I think the point is that if the town general fund were to pay rent into the rental space line item here, then that would transfer that cost of that space from the parking fund ratepayer to the general fund's taxpayer, because the cost would end up there, which is true, but maybe, and maybe the appropriate thing to do, I don't know. I think it's a pretty minor point in these larger numbers, but I could be wrong. Other members of the public with a comment? Seeing none, let's bring it back to the board. Well, certainly someone could make a motion at this time, if they wish.
I'll motion to approve the parking fund budget as presented.
I had a question.
Okay, well, Peter has made a motion to approve, do you mind if I add FY '27 to your motion?
Oh, no, please do, sorry.
Peter has made a motion to approve the FY '27 parking budget as presented. Let's have a discussion at the board level and then vote. No?
I was curious, do we know where we are at in terms of capacity for permits? I know that that's probably a per lot figure.
I don't have, I didn't
Yeah.
bring specific figures
Yeah,
on that.
yeah.
I could, that's definitely something I could get, not right now, but it's something I could bring back at some point.
I am sympathetic to what Dick said. If we are seeing that it is actually like, there's a significant of permits that are unpurchased, if the price were lowered per permit, and that could potentially see us having more permits, I think that would still net us a higher revenue. I know that some people were also put off because there was a miscalculation, right? Like people were getting, the quarterly rate was divided the wrong way, so the cost went up and people were like, why'd the cost go up? And it was like, because you were getting a deal this whole time and you didn't know, kind of compounded with that. So I think that's something to consider.
Just a point of clarification, what are we considering?
I think it's something to consider to lower the permit prices if we think that if we think that there's a trend. It sounds like there would have to be more work, but if there is a trend, seeing that we're seeing lower revenue than projected and a drop off, I know these are April numbers, but if the April numbers are showing 81.5 for the permits, whereas we had 140 for FY25, I think it's worth considering lowering the price to try to see more usage.
So,
Hold on, there's hands going up around the table. Let me go to Isaac first. And then.
So you're looking at 2 years of data. That's not a trend.
Isaac, I'm looking at the budget right in front of us.
Okay.
And we had 126, 140, and then down to 81.5.
It's not a trend.
Yeah.
I mean, like when I used to work in data management, and when you're looking at 5, 6 numbers in a row that are all headed the same way, then we could talk about a trend. But 3 numbers that happen to be in the same direction, I'd like to get some more data before we make policy decisions based on that. I am very sympathetic to the concerns that Dick and Kate raised around the accounting, because it may, from a managerial perspective, I can see, John, how it just seems like moving, it's just like, okay, we're still spending the same amount of money. But I think that it is important to have a true picture of where we are. I'm torn because I also want, this is the second meeting we've been talking about this. We have other things we want to address as well. I'm actually thinking about something that Kurt mentioned earlier, was the idea of having people who want to talk about more in the weeds around improving a system. Let's have a separate conversation. I'd be happy to be part of a committee that would think about long-term, about parking and field questions and concerns and ideas for improvement that maybe then could be, I came with a whole lot and I just put it on the table last meeting. I'd like to be able to have a group of people that could think together about, well, what are actual recommendations we want to think through, put forth, so that we're not spending necessarily more time here, just kind of brainstorming and thinking through ideas that are pretty new in terms of like this anywhere pass or any other ideas that we might have. So I'm comfortable with this budget to be able to move forward, but with I also, separately would be volunteering to be part of something longer term where we could look at making these recommendations, for instance, around the accounting that I'd like to see for the future.
I think that's a good idea. Do you mind if we, after this meeting offline, figure out the mechanics of that?
That would be
rather than
great.
deciding
Yeah, we
right
can
now?
tackle the motion at
Okay.
hand here.
Mel, do you have
I
other-
respect that we're 7 minutes over our agenda
Oh,
set
that's
time.
okay.
John, you had said that there would be the opportunity to comment at the next meeting on this, at the start of the item.
If the board does not approve
Okay.
this motion, then there is time if you want to bring it back. I don't know how much time we have to explore some of these ideas and get,
Okay.
you
The
know,
only
different numbers
thing
in.
I was bringing up, because I do think the rent is a whole other conversation that I have feelings on, but I'm not going to talk about now. I agree that if we don't, like you said, Isaac, if we can't see the amount of permits that were bought out of what's available, since we don't have that like right now relative to last year, then it's hard to make a decision off of that. To me, having 1 year or even 2 years of like, here's how many permits were bought, here's how many permits were bought, if there were a significant decrease in direct correlation with a cost increase, I would think that would be worth considering, given that we don't want it to go 3 more years to create a trend. And it's not a hill I'm gonna die on. But that is to me something that seems actionable that wouldn't require as much administrative time as, say, an anywhere permit. To say, you know, is there disengagement with the system because of a cost increase? Could we see an overall higher revenue at a cheaper price per unit?
Thank you, Nell. Yeah, Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, honestly, so sometimes we just need to make a decision, right? And I think that's what we're charged with tonight, is just making a decision, not kicking the can into another meeting. If we want to put together an exploratory committee, fine. That's nothing that I would stop, and maybe some good would come out of it. I don't care. I shouldn't say, I don't even have the power to stop it. So, one thing I was going to say that Isaac jumped in and said was, we don't have a trend. We have an anomaly here. This is, 2 years of data isn't a trend. To the point of discounting parking permits, when you discount a parking permit, let's say we sell 300 more parking permits as a result, at what end do we pay more because we've got 300 more people parking? Does it level out? Business goes where business is invited. Do we do enough? I think what we have here is sort of a marketing problem. I've always felt that around our parking systems and where to park, how to park. I think we talk about that from time to time without using that term. That's also nothing I'm wishing to litigate here tonight. But I just want to go back to my original statement. Sometimes we just need to make a decision. I'm going to vote in favor of this budget tonight, and that'll be my decision.
Thank you, Peter. I'll keep this brief. I think if we approve this budget, we will figure it out in some way and probably run somewhat in the vicinity of the deficit on paper here. I'm sure we'll figure something out. My preference, after having talked about this and looked at it more, I would like us to model a balanced budget for the parking system and see what kind of fee structure we would need and maybe make some tweaks. We've never hit 190K in permit sales, and we got that number by increasing the price. Clearly, we're seeing different behavior. And I think I'm actually pretty confident now that we need to make some fee increases so the budget can balance. And I don't want us to just pull the trigger on $1 million budget because, we don't want to obsess over details or something like that. Yes, John.
so one possible amendment to the motion that somebody could make is to address the concerns that the public had, is to reduce the transfers outline by 20,000 to cover the police rental of the facility to 46,500. And then if you wanted to balance the budget, you could increase miscellaneous revenue by 143,574, and then assign finding that money to a committee like Isaac's suggesting, and do rate increases later in the summer once that committee figures out what you want to do there. That's the only way I can see to reconcile this whole conversation, or you could just move forward with the budget as presented.
Okay. And we can change rates at any time because we moved them to their own schedule and out of the ordinance.
Yeah,
right?
it's a much
Yeah.
quicker now, so there won't be that lag, but there'd still be a little bit of lag.
I would be comfortable with that, but
I would,
I would as well.
Sorry, what about permit costs?
Yeah,
Are they out
so
of the ordinance?
I'm just saying for
Yeah.
the ease of approving this budget, put it in miscellaneous revenue
Yeah.
and figure out later, is that in parking meter revenue, is that in rental space, is that in wherever?
I understand that. Sorry, I was asking because Oscar said since we pulled the parking fees out of the ordinance, we can change that at any time. I was wondering if that was also applicable for permits.
Yes.
I think we've been going with the current rates and the current system now for 18 months? Is that about right?
Not even, yeah.
Right. So I will openly say I'm not in support of raising rates right now. Hard pass for me
Okay.
personally. I know that everybody here sort of professes that they talk to a lot of people downtown. I can all but guarantee the only person who talks more metering downtown than me is probably the people who hand out the tickets. People come in, they either complain, or I have to explain it, or I have to walk them through on the days that I'm in the shop. I think just raising the rates now to sort of satisfy where we are here would just be a bad move. I agree, at some point in time, maybe after we've seen a full 2 years of this going up a certain percentage, would be appropriate, but not at this point.
okay, so just to clarify briefly, we have a motion on the table to approve as presented. I think, I will make a motion to amend, and then we can vote on that, and then go back to the original motion. So I'm going to move to amend the motion. What was the number you had? 1, 2, 3.
Increase miscellaneous revenue by 143,574.
Okay, so I'm going to move to amend the motion to,
And reduce
let me find that.
transfers out.
So to approve the FY '27 parking budget, I guess we can say as amended. So this transfers out would become 46,500, miscellaneous revenue would go from 0 to 143,574.
So I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
Oh, well, I don't think you want that would be the change we were just talking about, which would require increasing more fees. Like, I'm saying we add more revenue to the budget, and then over the next month or two, have a conversation about how to get that revenue, which almost definitely means fees.
No,
So,
well, or not necessarily, because it could mean a whole different product, which is the Anywhere Pass.
it could, but if we're committing to a budget, we're committing to finding that revenue. So, you're welcome to accept it
No.
as a friendly amendment, but I think.
No, I'm sorry, I misunderstood
Okay.
it then.
Okay, so I've moved to amend. Is there any discussion on that amendment?
Well, if we're, point of procedure,
Yes.
so I made a motion to accept it.
Mhm.
Do we need to vote on that?
So I've moved to amend your motion. So if you want to just accept it, we should vote down my amendment, and then we'll be back to the original motion, we can approve that.
So we are, just to be clear, effectively what we're doing is we would be approving a meter increase.
Probably,
cost-
in practice, probably, yes.
The cost of raising rates on our parking meters.
Right.
Okay.
It's either that or we accept, it's whether or not you think it's gonna end up in a deficit, and if you think it's gonna end up in a deficit, then you're signing on to a general fund balance transfer to support it.
I think where we sit right now, given the few conversations we've had about downtown businesses closing, a little bit of a melee about some dining outside, adding this into the mix is the poorest timing.
Other comments from the board? And then, well, other comments from the board?
So I really appreciate that you're standing up for our town finances and that you're standing up for the experience of people in our community who use our parking system. And I think that we can actually do right by both. And I think that we can, with your proposal, we can find a way that does both what you're talking about, Peter. We have $1,000 in this proposal that was made, in this budget we're looking at, for signage. We can do some of that marketing that you're talking about and communicate better what we have. And we can also make some modifications based on input that we gather around where we can make modifications to the cost of parking with the least negative impact to our community. So I'm supportive of this proposal that you've made, Oscar.
Thank you, Isaac. Any other comments?
I'm actually not confident that we'd find that revenue. I just frankly think it is choosing where the money's going to come from. And so, do you want to try to incentivize ratepayers, or try to essentially get it from ratepayers, or do you want to accept the possibility that it's going to come out of the general fund and like 143.5 is, I don't know, like 0.75% or something, if we're looking at
Sounds right.
200 as a percent. So that's where I feel on it, and I don't, I just think that's something we should consider. And I do think people will throw their hands up about a rate increase.
What do you mean by that?
Throw their hands up and be angry about a rate increase. And I think that I just want the reality of it's money, just where do we want the money to come from? And theoretically, like, you're guaranteed it's going to come from the general fund. If we have a deficit, you're guaranteed it's going to come from the general fund. You're not guaranteed it's going to come from a ratepayer if you increase the rates. I'm in support of amending the transfer out. I am in support of that.
Okay. And this doesn't really, probably shouldn't need to be said, but people are welcome to vote against amendments and motions or for amendments and motions, and that's a normal part of doing business and is totally fine. It's just how the board makes decisions. So we have this amendment on the table. I will briefly ask the public if there's any comment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for a vote. So this is to add 143,574 to miscellaneous revenue and remove 20,000 from the transfer out and other, yes. So all in favor of that motion, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Nay. Abstentions?
I didn't make up my mind.
Okay, that's okay. I mean, motion fails 2-2-1. Okay, so now we're back to Peter's motion. It was your motion, right?
Just
To
to
approve the
accept it.
parking budget as presented. Any further discussion on that? Any comment from the public? All right, board, you ready for the vote?
Yep.
All in favor of approving the parking budget as presented, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Sorry, not me. I'm losing it. All opposed,
You got
please
it.
say nay. Nay. Okay, motion carries 3-2.
Okay.
We have adopted the parking budget. Thank you, Chief Evans. Okay, so we're running a bit behind schedule, but we're not at 2 hours yet, so let's see what progress we can make on the nonprofit donations requests.
Yep, and I would ask Jennifer Burnell, the town assessor, to come to the table if she's here, and she is.
Hi, Jennifer, welcome.
Chair, when are we planning on taking a break?
I was planning after this at about 2 hours, is that? Yeah, yes?
Before we start this, can I just suggest that I know what we're going to talk about tonight could be somewhat sensitive to people who may or may not have contributed, so I would ask that we didn't ask who did or did not contribute when asked last year. I'm just out of sensitivity to those organizations that may or may not have.
Thank you, Peter. I think that's a good sentiment.
Well said.
Jennifer?
Good
Welcome.
evening. Hi. Thanks for having me. Last year, the board asked for me to put together a list of nonprofit property owners who do not already make a contribution to the municipal fund. And a letter was drafted by 2 select board members and 1 public volunteer, who's also our lister, elected lister. And that letter was drafted and sent out, signed by the chair at the time of the select board. And I'm here to ask if the board is interested in continuing with this new letter of request.
Thank you, Jennifer. I think actually for structure, if someone's interested in starting us with a motion, we can start there.
What would we say in said motion? Hang on, John Potter.
I could, oh, okay.
I will motion to approve continuing the request for parcels to make a municipal contribution. This list is comprised of all exempt parcels that do not already contribute to the town for a portion of municipal taxes based on their assessment.
Thank you, Peter. Peter has made a motion. Discussion by the board. Isaac, any comments?
I oppose this motion because the feedback that I've received from multiple nonprofits is that they found that this was, that it was not favorable, that they felt that their contributions to the town were far greater than what they were being, that their usage of services from the town, and that based on the very small revenue that we received from this, relative to the amount of time and energy that was put into making these requests, I think this is an inappropriate use of our town staff time.
Thank you, Isaac. Amanda, do you have a comment?
Oh, yeah, I think that this is a really important thing to do. I'm glad we request this of our nonprofit organizations who own property in the town for their consideration. I think if it was just a one-off that happened last year, it might not have resonated. So it just, every organization has different points in its life cycle, and maybe we will find a little bit of revenue. And I think it's just important to stay consistent with a procedure that we did last year.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm sort of ambivalent about this program, but I'm willing to continue it for another year. I think the language in the letter is appropriate, and it's worth saying out loud that to anyone who receives this letter, we in no way begrudge your tax-exempt status. You receive that in a legitimate way in exchange for the sort of work that you do. And I hope the letter makes that clear, that this is voluntary, that we are asking for a contribution, but saying no is a completely acceptable answer. But I'm willing to continue this program for another year. Peter?
Yeah, I mean, and Oscar likes the language because both Oscar and I wrote it. So, and highlighting the very important part of that letter, which said that if you're not in a place to do it, then please feel free not to. And if you are, I don't think we set a dollar amount. What you could afford, run it by your board, it's all fine. We're in a situation where we have to try to glean money where we can without putting more on the taxpayer's head. This might not be, again, that huge windfall, but again, taking another small bite. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, Peter. Nell?
I also appreciate the underlined sentence of the wording. If you are unable to contribute, these services are still available to you, like Peter just said. I probably would have written if you do not contribute. some people might choose not to. As kind of Isaac said, they might feel that their work, what they actually use relative to their work, is a different impact. I think any other opinions I would have on it would require more work that I don't particularly feel like doing relative to all the work that needs to be done.
Excellent. Yes.
Could we just get an accounting of the number of hours that were staff time, the cost of doing this? Because we get cost figures for a lot of other things that we ask for. So I'd just like to get a cost of this outreach in this past year versus, and the total amount, and also here in comparison, the total amount of funds that were collected.
Thank you, Isaac. John, is there a way to estimate?
I mean, I think it was relatively low, actually. There was costs in mailing letters out. Jennifer, do you have any sense of the number of hours that went into this?
Have to think back. It's a little bit of part of what I already do. Tracking this information is kind of part of my work. This just added a layer of what should be the percent to use as a calculation. So that was a request that I had put out to finance. And it didn't seem to take too awful long to get that answer back. Putting together each letter did take a while because I had to input different. We did have a recommended amount based on the assessment, based on the percent that we came up with. So I had to take each one and edit each letter. Now that work has actually been done, it won't take much more time this year to carry on with that work. So you're creating a spreadsheet, you're putting together values. Excel spreadsheets are nice for that kind of work. So the upfront time, it might have taken me 5 hours total to do it. It was a little bit, but I mean, that's actually a lot more than I think it really did.
Including the mailing of the stuffing the envelopes and all that sort of thing?
I believe Jessica did the envelope work. We have equipment for that too, but.
I just ask because I have to do appeals for my work, and I just know how much time and energy it takes.
Yeah.
And I want to be mindful of that versus the return and the appropriateness of the ask.
Thanks.
And the total amount that was raised.
So I thought I had it here.
I think it's
We
in
could
the
3553
Yeah.
off of the backup materials.
So 3,500, something around that.
Yes, and Peter, I appreciate your request since it's already in the public backup.
No, I was, my request was more like, and who are they?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not
I
naming
don't-
them, just the total.
No, I understand that.
So about $3,500, yes. Other comments by the board, and then we'll go to the public.
I'll make one comment, and that is from my perspective as a farmer and someone who takes care of land in a rural area, on a rural road. People enjoy the views, they enjoy the way we make the property look, and they don't always realize that there's a lot of work that goes into that. And you feel kind of unseen. And so for a nonprofit who owns property in the town of Brattleboro, for them to acknowledge the departments that care for everything around them, the parking lot, the road, they're obviously emergency services, our police, our fire, is really critically important for us to work together as a community. And the acknowledgement is, sometimes it does help if it's in a dollar amount, but it also can be a thank you. I appreciate you. I see you. And that's what I think kind of this letter says. I see you, town. I see the operations, and I like having my nonprofit here, and I want to be a part of the solution. So,
Thanks,
my
Amanda.
2 cents.
Other comments from the board?
I just think there's literally no onus on these organizations to contribute. It's a letter. And so if they disagree, you know, they might say, hey, I have my own parking lot I maintain. Hey, a bunch of people use my parking lot all the time and don't pay for parking in there. They can have that opinion, and this letter has no control or authority over them. So that's,
Again,
yeah.
no is an acceptable answer.
All right, any members of the public with a comment? Dick?
Dick DeGray, Brattleboro, did I count right? Is there 48 on this list? I don't have my glasses on, but
I don't have a
that's how
number.
It's
many
in
I
that
counted.
neighborhood, yeah.
Total
Total-
rows?
Total nonprofits was at 48?
Some of those are double, they own multiple properties, so.
I actually don't support this at all. I mean, we got roughly $3,500. And, you know, sending Brattleboro Memorial Hospital, can you pay us? We should be doing a fundraiser to make sure we can keep them. They're really important to our community. Then when I see the churches, the separation of church and state, why were they added to the list? I don't, you know. And then 10 minutes ago, we're talking about a parking budget that you approved that's got a deficit in it, and somebody makes a motion to try to change that so it's at least level funded, and you vote it down. So it's kind of like a Ouija board trying to figure out your thinking here. But I do think it's inappropriate to try to scratch money from organizations that do a lot for our community. And I include the churches and the hospital, and I could go through the whole list. I guess we need more innovative thinking, and maybe that's what the Next Gen group can be talking about, how we can generate more revenue so we don't have to go after nonprofits. Because the nonprofits are an important part of our community. And I think there's an identity that those nonprofits show who we are. And I think they're important. And I'm as concerned about revenue as everybody sitting up there. But I don't think going after organizations that are scraping for money and losing funding from federal and state sources, that we need to be going, okay, look in your pocket. And I know you're not asking them to write a check, but the reality is we shouldn't even be asking them to write a check. Thank you.
May I respond to that?
Please.
So, again, no is an acceptable answer, okay? Again. Also, as I look down this list and I think about the $350,000 thing that we approved, some of these people have asked for money from the taxpayers to fund their projects. So again, you know, I had a conversation with Brattleboro Memorial Hospital when we did the appeal last year, and I told them the same thing I keep repeating here. No is an acceptable answer. But if you're in a windfall, you have the fortunate thing to contribute to us in this manner, please do. If you don't, then don't. I'm going to keep going back to that, because it is this. I think we do provide a lot of services. These people provide a lot of services, but, you know, I can see a couple on here that have asked the human service funding for a large amount of money. So I think for us to ask for a little bit if you can, is an acceptable ask.
Thanks, Peter.
Chair, just a point of order.
Yes.
If this is what you call it. I see there's one person who has his hand up online, but could we limit debate on this to?
We'll take
this
Bob and then vote.
have a.
Does
That's what I'm
sound
trying to
good?
get at.
Great. Thank you, Isaac. Seth, let's go to Bob and then back to the board.
Hear me? No?
Yes.
Yes.
You can.
Yes, you can. Okay. I'll try to be very brief. So a couple of questions or comments. For those nonprofits that were approved for that status through legislature, through statute, is this really somewhat of a discrepancy between what the legislature did and what we're doing now with the request for donation? Is a legislative fix what's really required? For those who are approved by town meeting, should this be going to town meeting for some input? And then, as you just mentioned, that town meeting did approve human services funding for some organizations. So there seems to be a conflict between giving a donation through human services funding and then asking for money to replenish the municipal budget from the people we gave the money to. That I can't get my head around that. Does this set up an appearance? I'm not saying that it exists, but does it set up an appearance of a quid pro quo for possibly certain organizations? And then I would go to Peter's comment about not naming the organization. Some are named in the spreadsheet in the backup material, but does that set up some sort of an appearance of a quid pro quo? Someone mentioned to me today, and I don't know legally whether this is feasible, but that some organizations that are either nonprofits or function as nonprofits have entered into negotiated pilot programs with the town, payment in lieu of taxes. Might that be a way to go? And then the last one, which I'll end on and not explain too much because I see I'm coming to the end of time, is what are the unintended consequences of this? So I'll give you the donation. It's because of services. I may not use those services. I may refrain from using those services because I see that you need a donation for that. And that might be an unintended consequence. And also trickle down to other nonprofits that are maybe associated with that nonprofit. So I'll leave it there. Any of those questions you can answer, that would be fine.
Thank you, Bob. I'll quickly respond to a couple with just my opinion. I think if we were trying to change the status of these organizations, that would be a town meeting question or a legislative question. I certainly have no interest in trying to do that. And also just that to come back to that it's just an ask, and that clearly and fortunately, organizations are not feeling compelled to give. I mean, many are saying no, as they should if they choose. So I don't feel like there's an element of compulsion or burden on these organizations. That's just my opinion. Let's come back to the board. We have do we have a motion on the table? You do. We have a motion on the table. Are we ready for the vote on that motion?
Yes.
Okay. So the motion is to approve continuing the request for parcels to make a municipal contribution. This list is comprised of all exempt parcels that do not already contribute to the town for the portion of municipal expenses based on their assessment. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2. Okay. I'm gonna.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Everyone thanks you. Okay, I'm going to recess us for a nice 8-minute break. And I'll see you all at 8:20. Next agenda item, I've lost my paper, but it's the union contract. John?
Yes, and I would ask Human Resources and Finance Director Sally Cruz-Nix to join us at the table.
Hi, Sally, welcome.
Hey.
This is the first of 4 collective bargaining agreements that the negotiating team for the town and the negotiating team for the unions has come to handshake on, and now we are looking to the board to approve this, and Sally will update you on what the agreement is about.
Great.
Sure.
Sally?
Thank you, everybody. Sally Cruz-Nix, as you mentioned, HR Director. And yeah, so we started negotiating last summer. We felt it was important to start negotiating sooner, and the unions agreed as well, just so that we could try to bring forward better projections to your budget. So this one is in a memorandum of understanding with the Local 98 union. In my memo, I described the positions that are covered under this agreement, and we discussed such things as we negotiated with the union on the wages, the COLAs, cost of living adjustments, longevity payments, grievance procedures, performance evaluations, employee conduct, management rights, health insurance, and we also, in this contract, they petitioned to bring in their part-time clerks from the basically the library or the finance. There's positions that are part-time, so anybody 20 to 29 hours are now eligible to join this collective bargaining agreement and become members. And this also is a 3-year agreement, which includes a minimum COLA of 2% for each year of the agreement. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have from the materials provided to you earlier.
Thanks, Sally. I will say, given that we've been talking about this over and over again in executive session for a year, I have no questions for you, but just to thank you and the negotiating team and everyone involved for all the hard work and the understanding that there are 3 more of these still to come. Other comments from the board? Peter?
I would just echo what Oscar said. Yeah, I think we've kind of chatted this one through, and thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Nell?
It's already been said. I'll vote to approve it and let Sally go home.
Thanks, Nell. Amanda?
Thank you.
Well put.
You're welcome.
Ditto.
Oh, great, thank you.
Okay.
Great.
I'd love to make a motion.
Please.
Okay. I move to approve the February 17, 2026 Memorandum of Understanding between the Town of Brattleboro and the International Union of Operating Engineers Local 98 for inclusion in the collective bargaining agreement for July 1, 2026 through June 30, 2029.
Thank you, Amanda. Amanda has made a motion. I'd like to open it up for public comments. Are there members of the public with questions or comments? Seeing none. Board, you ready for the vote?
Yes.
Amanda has moved to approve the February 17th, 2026 Memorandum of Understanding between the Town of Brattleboro and the International Union of Operating Engineers Local 98 for inclusion in the collective bargaining agreement for July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2029. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, Sally.
Thank you.
Next, we will be visited by and hear from the Wyndham Regional Career Center. I'd like to invite anyone who's interested up to the table and welcome you to our meeting. And if you just introduce yourselves, and when you speak into the mic, you're talking to us, but also everyone watching on Zoom and in the future on YouTube.
Thank you. My name is Linda Alvarez, and I am very honored to have been selected as the 2026 Vermont State Teacher of the Year. I live here in Brattleboro. I moved here with my family 11 years ago, and I teach the Business, Marketing, and Entrepreneurship program at the Wyndham Regional Career Center right now. So I was asked by John and Amanda to come and talk a little bit about what we're doing at the Career Center. And one of the things that I've been working on in my year of service for the National Teacher of the Year program is going around and talking about how career centers are creating a greater sense of belonging and a greater sense of being part of something bigger than just traditional high school. So I think we had a little presentation, very short.
Thank you, Seth.
So the Wyndham Regional Career Center, I think, is in its 52nd year here in Southern Vermont. We have high schools from 5 different communities that feed into our high school. So we have Twin Valley, Bellows Falls, Leland and Gray, and we also have students from Hinsdale. We have an agreement with New Hampshire that was back in effect this year, and those students also come to the Career Center. So you want to go to the next? So just a little bit about us, and I'm not going to read the whole presentation. It is there for you to read. But we really value preparing our students to go on to a career or onto a high-tech college program. It's about 50-50 with our students right now, whether they go directly into the workforce or they go into a college program. For example, my business students, many of them choose to go into a business program in college. Our LNA students usually go on to nursing programs. But then we also have students who choose to open their own businesses. We have a student that I know came and visited here that's going to open a bakery hopefully this year. We have a student that's going directly into work at the Putney Fire Department for rescue. So there's a lot of different success stories and a lot of different paths that we help our students go to. Our mission is to provide all learners with skills and competencies for their post-secondary success. However, we really use a lot of data to make sure that we are making good financial decisions for the programs that we have, meaning like what kind of equipment we buy or even what programs we run. And so that does change from time to time. For example, a few years ago, we began offering aviation careers, which sounds like, oh, Brattleboro, we don't have an airport. But we do have a lot of aviation jobs in the area. We take a lot of time to do different reports to see what the job markets are. And they're up, especially up north in Vermont, there's a lot of aviation tech companies. So we kind of try to gear what we present to our students and the opportunities that they have as something that they can go directly into the workforce. And we have 11 programs right now. We do have, I'm going to run through them just so you can hear, automotive technology, and we're working with electric cars with that right now. I know our instructor's been getting additional training. Aviation and drone careers. The drone side is something that we're going to focus more on because in Southern Vermont, there's a lot more need for people that have drone operating licenses. Business management, marketing, entrepreneurship is my program. Construction and architecture. Our culinary arts program is going to start running again next year. We've hired a new chef, and we are really excited that the cafe is going to be reopening. I get to help with that with some of my past experience. We have criminal justice and the law. We have early childhood education, electrical technology, forestry and natural resources. And this is my son, Sebastian. He's going to be in that program next year. So we're pretty excited. Health careers, which encompasses all sorts of health career directions, not just LNA. And then advanced manufacturing and 3D printing. And if I could just say something about that program, we're working really hard to get our students and our young people in the community to understand what advanced manufacturing means. It is such an amazing space, and some of the tools that we've acquired over the last few years that I don't completely understand, but they can make really amazing things in that lab. So we're really trying to bring more students in to see what's available there. And then just a little bit of data that we're really, really proud about at our center. The state graduation rate for Vermont hovers anywhere between 80 and 85% of the students graduate, and that's in a traditional 4-year time span. At the Career Center, we've hovered anywhere between like 92 to 95, 97%, and that's something that we take a lot of pride in. We know that one of the reasons that is a little bit higher is because students choose to be in our programs. They have to apply, and then they have to maintain a certain level of work to be able to stay in the programs, and that helps towards finishing the program. And so something that we're trying to work on, and different people around the state in our center and in our district, is how do we take that sense of belonging that we've created and help bring that to the other high schools. Because there's a lot of students that go to school every day and they don't feel part of their school community. And we'd like to see every student not only be successful, but feel like they're a meaningful part of their organization. There's a couple exceptional students that we highlighted. We are also working really hard to try to get students into a non-traditional career pathways. So Mackenzie Cleash is a student in the criminal justice program, and she's going to go on in college. She'd like to be a lawyer. And then we have Annabelle Brooks, who is from Leland and Gray, and she comes down every day for 2 years. She drives herself, and she's going to be graduating that program. She did pass the pilot's test, and she's going to be attending a Vermont School for Aviation. So Vermont State has an aviation's career program. So that's really exciting. Those are two of our seniors. Real world experiences is really what we try to connect our students to, not just what's in the classroom or what's in Southern Vermont, but like what's in the New England area and even sometimes the greater world. So we do use a lot of credentials and dual enrollment within our programs, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But one of the major things that helps is our CTSOs, which are career tech student organizations, and those are membership organizations that the students can belong to. We have, just at our school, FFA, which is Future Farmers of America, Game of Logging, which is through forestry. Skills USA, which is all of the different programs can compete, both state and nationally. FBLA is my organization, so this year we had 11 students place for second or third in the state of Vermont, including securities and investment, and we had a first place for business law, and I'm forgetting one, but it was a very good year. HOSA is the health organization, and the students also compete in that. And we had one of our students won first place for one of her presentations up at UVM. And then Ed Rising is a new organization in Vermont, and it's for our early education and other education programs around the state. So the kids all get to have a little bit of experience outside of our area and competitions, but also in meetings. We do different leadership consoles, all sorts of ways to get the students a little bit more interested or just to build that self-esteem to being part of a group. A couple of things for milestones and future plans. We are working really hard on community partnerships. That's something I've been out on the road talking about. I was invited to Washington, D.C. to talk about this, representing Vermont and representing us at a convention that was all like state chiefs for CTE, and the idea that when we can bring kids into the classroom and have community partners come into the classroom and connect them directly, it makes the level of learning more authentic. I think that our younger generation is much more savvy about wanting to have firsthand experiences. They're not quite as trusting in what they read or what they see. They'd rather meet somebody. And so in understanding that, bringing more people, I mean, I brought my class here a few weeks ago to meet with Mr. Potter and to do a tour of the building, and it was just, they'd lived here 18 years and they'd never been here. And it was really exciting to see that this is how our local government works. So if we can just multiply that out. Two things that we do to make sure that our students have some sort of official preparation when they leave are industry recognized credentials. And those are driven by, we have advisory boards that we meet with twice a year, and we try to decide what is going to be most effective for our students to earn. So for example, my students are working through a social media management simulation, and it's a national test where they have to prove that over the last 9 weeks they've gained enough knowledge that they can get this credential. And that is something that students in college and people outside of the academic world also can get. And so, electrical gets a credential. There's all sorts of different things. And then on top of that, we also offer dual enrollment, which has many different names in the CTE world, but essentially the kids earn college credits while taking our classes. So in my program, there's 12 embedded credits, which is 4 college classes. So when they graduate from their high school and from us, they also already have half of a AA in business complete, which is really cool. And it's free for them and their parents. And that's it for my little presentation. But we're open to, you know, if anybody ever wanted to come by and see the center, or if you have more questions, obviously if you have questions right now, but anybody out in the public too, we certainly invite people to come and visit, or especially if you'd like to get involved as a community partner in any of our programs. We welcome that.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks.
That was great. Well, questions, comments from the board? Isaac?
Yeah, thank you. 25 years ago, I graduated from BUHS and also the Career Center, and it was honestly what kept me at BUHS.
That's
I was
awesome.
at a place in my life where I was really lonely and wanted to get the heck out of here. And being able to be in what you spoke about in terms of the sense of belonging, it was transformative in my life, and I'm just deeply grateful for the Wyndham Regional Career Center, and so glad for the work that you do, and would welcome opportunities for us to, if there's anything that we can do as a board to support what you're doing. I'm really glad that I was able to come back to this community and with my family, and I hope that we can continue to support the young people that are in our community with finding meaningful employment, as well as that sense of belonging right here in Southern Vermont.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Isaac. Amanda?
I want to say thank you so much, Linda. Truly inspiring, and I'm so proud that the Teacher of the Year is from Brattleboro High School at the Wyndham Regional Career Center.
Thank
I mean,
you.
that's huge. And also another person in your program got other state accolades as well.
Yes.
Right?
Our director she was just named Director of the Year for the state of Vermont, which is pretty cool.
I mean, that's huge, and very hopeful. All of my kids spent some time at Brattleboro High School, and their peers and many faces I recognized in the pictures, and it pulls school and community engagement, really pulls us together as a town.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you for being such a star leader in our community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, I mean, echo what these guys said. You guys are a great organization. I've worked with you for years. I've been to your offices. I visited you guys. I'm really happy that you had the chance to come to this meeting and present like this. It's really excellent. What is there information you can share about if somebody's interested in your programs? Where should they look?
The easiest thing to do is, if you're interested in the programs, to go to the website, which Oscar helps us with.
That's right.
And it's very easy to find basic information about the programs. We all have a page there where we go more in depth into what we do in our room or in our classes. And then we also have the official class descriptions that will give you all of the information you could need. But if your son or daughter is ready to think about applying, those applications start in the fall. You traditionally need to be 16 years old. A lot of that has to do with safety rules. There are some students that can be allowed in as a sophomore if they're a little less than 16, as long as that's close. But mainly we are junior and seniors who are in our programs. But if you want more information, there's a number you can call. We have a really great counselor that takes people on tours, or you can reach out to me directly or any of our teachers directly. Everybody loves to have visitors, and we all like to talk about our programs.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Peter?
So this is where I sound old, okay? Because I don't get to say I graduated from there 25 years ago, but roughly about 25, 26 years ago, in the very 2000, 2001, my radio station and myself were invited to broadcast for an open house day. And as a result, I took my first tour. And from that day on, I have always called the Career Center an absolute gift, because every child learns differently.
Yeah.
And Isaac pointed out, it's the one thing that sort of kept him kept them in the school game, right? Kept them focused. It's one thing to look forward to, and it's absolutely precious that we have this in our community, and the good you do. I don't know if you could ever express the lives you touched and the kids you mold. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Nell?
I was going to say this is lovely to hear about. I grew up in Ottawa, Ontario, and I left school in grade 11. I was very disengaged, and I was angry that they wouldn't let me go to part-time because I was already a semester ahead and unimpressed, and I wanted to go do my own stuff. I had this whole other thing I was doing. And so I essentially got in a fight with my school administration, and I went to an alternate school, and that's where I finished high school. And the experience at that alternate school was essentially sitting in a room for 3.5 hours a day with a book, an ILC book that you learn out of, and a laptop. And who would be surprised? The person who I was a full semester ahead on credits. I then took 3 years to finish my 10 additional remaining credits, and 6 of those were co-op credits that I got through the food collective I was running at the time, because I could not care about that, and there was no engagement. So it's really wonderful to hear what you're doing for young people. And I am sure I would have been a way less crazy teenager with a structure like that in place. So it's really lovely to hear this. Thank you for taking the time and an evening to come talk to us. And I looked at your website when Oscar brought that up, and I just saw that you have programs for adult learners too, which
Yes,
is really
we do.
great as well.
And we're expanding that. So adults are welcome into our programs. We also offer all sorts of different programming in the evening for adults. I know our electrical instructor has all different shop talks. There's construction nights, and that's something that we've been expanding. Our biggest focus the last 5 years since COVID is to bring the kids back into the center, and really the state has changed the way that they operate CTE. A lot of our money is grant funded through the federal government, so we have a lot more hoops than traditional schools as far as how we can operate. And so adult ed is something that we've been working on very hard. We have a coordinator now, and as those programs come along, we'll make sure to put those out to the community too.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the public with any questions or comments? Jeremy?
Jeremy Evans, I'm the police chief, and I just want to say that I find the Career Center programs to be absolutely fantastic. We have a great collaboration with Orlando in the law enforcement class, and I'm honored to be on the advisory committee for that, for their curriculum, and I just find the whole programming and everything to be absolutely fantastic for our community.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you for staying to make that comment. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, I think I'll just thank you all three of you for coming and presenting. It was really wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you. All right, it's time for the final item on our agenda, which is a discussion of our legislative priorities. Our goal today is to have a conversation and quasi-brainstorming, talk about ideas, and then we'll come back at a second meeting with a memo that sort of writes down and refines what we've talked about, and at that point we will actually adopt, or we will potentially adopt, some priorities. So there are some ideas or previous priorities on this list, but the floor is wide open for whatever's on people's minds. And not wishing to put anyone on the spot, but who would like to get us started? And if nobody, I'm happy to. Isaac?
I just really appreciate you getting to see these and to have this conversation. That's the first thing.
Great. Thank you, Isaac.
And so process-wise, in terms of content, They generally look really great. I mean, I think lowering property taxes, building housing, promoting public safety, and prioritizing transportation all sound great. I have a couple of questions about one, two of the things, what they mean. But I wanted to also just bring up that at our town meeting, there were a couple of, at the end of the day, after we've had long debates, people can come up with the floor and make those non-binding resolutions. Isn't that part of the charter that town meeting provides some guidance for us in terms of, or what is it?
There's some language like that.
You know
yes.
what I'm saying? And so I think it might be worth looking at, well, what were those resolutions? Which, if any, have to do with state legislation? And is there any state legislation that we would want to support in regards to those? And the resolutions that I remember, one was about civil liberties, and another one was about use of the Vermont National Guard, particularly deployment for overseas combat absent congressional authorization. And just for transparency's sake, the organization that I direct has campaigned for that issue of protecting the National Guard from unconstitutional deployments.
Thank you, Isaac. I'm seeing notes being taken.
And one other thing is,
please,
along with one of the things under public, I think it's public safety, yes, is the allowing property owners of multi-unit housing to trespass people threatening or engaging in illegal behavior. This is very similar to something that has been brought up by Windsor Housing Trust folks, and which I have supported, which is making it easier for property managers to prohibit the entry of guests of residents who are causing serious harm to our community. Now, I've talked about this with a lawyer who works with tenants and a supporter of tenants' rights, and he shared some of the concerns there, that we want to make sure that tenants can have certain agency of who coming to visit them. But this is one where I think that when the laws were written, we didn't have the crisis that we have right now, in terms of we weren't having as much harm being created by people who were taking advantage of, and we didn't have the problems with addiction quite like we have right now. So I'm supportive of that. I also would like to see on here renters protection of renters, in terms of, we've seen people having gone from being sheltered to having out-of-state companies coming over, hedge funds or whatever it is, taking over apartment complexes, no connection to the community, doubling people's rents, people in wheelchairs then becoming homeless. And so I'd like to see some promotion of renters' rights in terms of that sort of situation as well, which I think could go along with the accountability for residents.
Thanks, Isaac. I think we're going to try and thank you for being the one to break the ice and start the conversation. I think we're going to try to keep this pretty informal and less me just calling on everybody. I'll certainly direct traffic if we start talking over each other, but I think the goal is to just kind of have a loose conversation, sort of like we did at our retreat. So anyone else who would like to
I've got one.
Please
coming
do.
from this end of the table. I'd really like to see a comprehensive statewide solution to homelessness in the state of Vermont. I would like to see comprehensive addiction treatment, recovery programming, transitional housing, and job training for, that all speaks to our region, our town, but our state. And we really need to, our state leadership really needs to, we need that support. We need, beyond support, we need a plan. And we are in a situation where there hasn't really been a comprehensive plan. There've been a lot of people working very hard with what they can, but where a lot of people are still struggling. So those are my 2 cents.
Well, let me tack on to that something I have in my own notes, which is, in terms of advocacy, I think the GA program as it exists needs to be replaced or transformed in some way. It has to, we can't just pull housing away from people, but that program is winding down, is not a good fit for the job it's being made to do.
GA, you mean general assistance,
Yeah, the
having to do
motel
motel
program.
vouchers?
Yeah, and that's something that I know is on the radar of the legislature and will probably continue to be until they can work something out, but that's a specific priority.
But it is good to specify motels because as we've been told, the GA program is
Yes.
a whole other, it's one little thing of.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
and Oscar, there was that bill, there was a bill that was passed this session to address that.
Yes.
And so and maybe we can look at whether you think there's some other things in that need to get further work on or something, so.
Yep.
That H938? I think, as Amanda said, and as you all are saying, the key word is adequately fund.
Yep.
Program to address homelessness. And my impression is that H938 probably isn't adequately funding that. Here's
Yeah.
my impressions, which are shaped from where I grew up. The only usage that I was familiar with motels when I was trying to help people interact with the shelter system, it was called emergency offsite housing, and it was essentially for like mothers and children, because that's not a combination that's easy to have in a shelter system if you don't have a family shelter. Many of you have already heard me say this. I do actually think it's ridiculous that we have the state essentially trying to farm out what I believe is a part of a government's obligation. We need caseworkers. Let's pay a nonprofit to do it. When we have DCF, what about increasing that capacity? Oh, we need rooms. Let's pay motel owners and not have sufficient oversight over how people are being housed, the quality of those rooms, et cetera, et cetera. There's no embedded caseworkers instead of adequately funding a shelter system. We're seeing a reduction in federal funding, so people don't have the vouchers. So the key point of transition, where it's you're in a shelter, maybe you're in a higher barrier shelter, maybe there's a potential to move to another thing. That rung is seemingly maybe not gone, but weakened, that we're coming down from the federal level. So what onus does the state feel towards that? And what rung could be offered instead? Because I think, as plenty of people feel, it affects social welfare, regardless of whose social welfare you're more focused on. It affects general social welfare if people can't attempt to rehabilitate to a certain level of functionality. So the adequate is a really big part of that. Adequately fund. And
I
Let me
have
just-
another topic too.
Quick bit of structure. We started at 1:45. Let's do a crisp half hour, and at 9:15, see how we feel. I'm seeing a look of shock and dismay on your face, Amanda. Is that?
Oh, but shock and dismay, I guess, sure, I'm game for a half an hour. Yeah,
Okay.
but it could be shorter.
It could certainly be shorter. We will feel no need to pad it out to meet half an hour. Well, yes, you said you had
Okay,
another.
so another area of great statewide importance, especially important to our region, our town, are transportation funds for our roads and infrastructure, and really letting our legislators know that this is something that's one of our select board priorities, and in order to do that, we need support from the state. So anyway.
I think on those lines, I think the train and the mover are the things that I would pick out specifically in the transportation area. I think it might, it might be true that the mover might secretly be one of the most valuable things we have going on now, even in terms of like a social service. Just this amount of free public transit is really, really rare for a town our size. And it was in trouble last year. So I think I'm kind of looking at this list and our conversation and trying to think in terms of some specifics. So the mover, increased train service are two areas that I feel strongly about.
Heavy on the train service.
I'm big on pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. I think that's the wave of the future. We certainly have a vibrant bike and ped community here. It opens up economic opportunity. It opens up green transportation options and helping towns to be able to secure grants to do that, because it's an exorbitant amount of money. There's no way a tax base could find that money within itself to do that. And so with that, the technical support, the design, I'm looking at Peter here. That's Bike Town could be great for our town, but it could be great for a lot of other towns, but it certainly would be great for Brattleboro. So let's get there first, and let's get our legislators on board with that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of trying to put forth things that can be a win, right? Solving homelessness, 100%. Huge and unwieldy, right? So how do we take pieces of this thing that maybe over the course of time, you pick a thing, you get a win. Well, I don't know what that looks like. I don't even know what that means. That means like family shelter, right? I can remember years ago, I used to volunteer at Morningside Emergency Shelter, which was a family shelter. They had some single bed shelters, but there was some structure there so that if a family fell in hard times, they had this place to go, which was as soft a landing as a person could take, but it had some structure and without the pressure of having to filter through. And as the state motel program has proven, you're in a room, clock's ticking, right? So if we could remove that stress from a situation for a family, that might be nice. So maybe just focusing on that sort of thing first to get that win. Because I think if we get that win, then that gives us ideas to say, okay, and here's how we can roll the rest of that out. That's just one thought. Transportation, 100%. The mover is a true asset to our community. I watch how many people load on and get on that thing, and being able to maybe expand that route and trying to find funding for that. I feel like that is also a thing that we can manage. That would be a win, right? Not adding our own transportation system, which would be huge and unwieldy. We don't want to. Huh?
A subway.
A subway. There we go. Just start digging holes. So that that too feels like a win. There are a few things on this list that John and I talked about this morning, and where was it, the toll thing? What was that?
Number 3.
Bullet on lower property taxes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Right. And that's an interesting concept. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm a big fan of the people who come into our region. Who, if let's use Route 9 for an example, right? That's been a road we've talked about a lot, where all these cars and traffics and tractor trailers come in and they literally beat the daylights out of that road. It would be nice to have some sort of a mechanism that excluded folks who live within the within the zip code. Again, don't know what that looks like, but it would be nice to recoup that. Taxes. I was in Alabama a while ago, and I was talking to a shop owner down there about their tax structure, which was almost 10%, right? And it was interesting how it was broken up. I think it was broken up like a 4% state tax, 4% town tax, like a 1% county tax, and even with all of that, they still had like a local option tax. I don't know if there's some mechanism there, not that I'm a fan of taxes. But I wouldn't mind taking a look at those things, but I'm sort of a fan of trying to figure out, like, taking small pieces, like, maybe the most alarming thing about homelessness is a family that loses their home for whatever reason. And do we feel any less, I don't know, I'm trying to find the words. Are they more important than, say, a single man who loses his home? I don't know. I think if we were to poll people, that might be the way. So is that the thing, maybe like reestablishing the family shelter?
Well, didn't Winston Prouty do that? And I know, I mean, like, Morningside 2.0 is opening in October.
And my understanding is that,
It's not explicitly family, but
Right.
it's a higher barrier from what
Right.
I understand. But Winston Prouty's family.
Yeah.
I think what supports what you're saying, and also, like, it's literally written here, adequately fund new program.
right.
Like, they're trying to switch over in H938, they're trying to switch essentially, like, bed capacity from motels to shelters, but it's not sufficient. And, like, how are you, and the pool is like 39 million or something that's going to that. And it's like, okay, so how does that incentivize, like, where do you need that, and where is it gonna happen? I think this, like, adequately fund those programs, because that has a whole effect on social welfare. I also, like, there's more of my Canadian perspective. A lot of people from Montreal go to Burlington. They don't come here because there's no connection between Wright River Junction and Brattleboro on a, like, regular basis. You can get a Greyhound from Montreal to White River. It's really hard to get to Brattleboro, even though there's already a huge, like, connection between NECA people and circus people in Montreal. There's, like, all these little underground webs, and I only bring it up because it's not that different from Boston in terms of college students who are, like, hipstery and want to come spend money, and want to come, you know, see Vermont and do that thing. But they're not going to if they have to take a 5-hour bus to White River and then either find a ride, wait another day to take the Amtrak down, or take a bus to Keene and then find a ride or find a way to get over from Keene, because that's what it is right now. Insofar as, like, if we saw more frequent Amtrak service to White River even.
Isaac, it looked like you were.
You know, hearing this whole discussion, looking at these different things on this list of priorities, if I had to choose one thing, with all of the things that I'm personally passionate about or professionally passionate about and all this, I would have to say what Amanda said in terms of comprehensive approach to homelessness and addiction treatment, that those two things I think would be at the top of my list.
I would tack one more on and say a reintroduction of single-payer healthcare on a state level.
That might be a separate
Yeah,
bullet point, possibly.
Remember I was
Bullet
talking about
point
those
might get-
wins, little wins?
I have more too.
Okay, yes, please.
We're just bubbling up ideas
Yeah, I
here. We're moving towards a half hour.
I know.
Just
I'm
kinda
happy to go
waking
longer,
up.
but
I really like the one from the list in the backup materials that speaks to me is a regional equity balance payments to support regional hub towns. I mean, that really speaks to Brattleboro. And it's something that on a state level, you know, being a hub town, as we all know, is it's wonderful. It's expensive. All of our surrounding towns depend on us. Guilford, Vernon, Dummerston, Putney, you know, and it's kind of, well, Putney also builds halls, but it's our surrounding towns need us and we need them, but our state needs to recognize that, and they need to recognize how much higher our tax rates are here and what we support. To be seen in that way would be very helpful. And I always think about statewide too, like I think about Rutland, and I'm thinking about Barry, and I'm thinking about Montpelier, and because we're all struggling right now because of the responsibilities that we carry. But it doesn't have to be that way if our state helped us out.
I think so. I agree. I think there's two points I'd make. One is that I think both sides of the table here are making good points about, if I could pick one thing on this list and have it happen, it would be the homelessness and addiction, solving that problem. But there's also the question of things on this list that maybe we could achieve in a single session or in a single bill or something like that. And so balancing the priority list, not just around, well, also around that, around a thing on this list that a legislator might say, oh yeah, I think we could put that in a bill and pass that, is also worth prioritizing. Things that feel really achievable. And then to your point about the regional equity payments, for me, I like a bunch of the things on the lower property taxes list, and that is one of them, but I'm kind of willing to, I'm sort of agnostic about the mechanism. So if some really savvy state legislator told me, oh, regional hubtown payments never gonna happen, but going from 80 to 90 cents on the dollar for the local option tax might happen, I would be happy to get some compensation from the state, like by whatever mechanism. So I think a priority around the lower property taxes category, I think, is good. And bullets 1, 4, 5, and 6, I think I feel best about. I like the creativity of the Easy Pass idea. I see a lot of, I can see a lot of negative consequences also to go along with the positive consequences. For example, I think the big one is some percentage fewer people are gonna come to Brattleboro. So for a town that relies on tourism that much, you don't think so? If Brattleboro is the only town in New England that has a tax to enter?
Let me tell you a story about my uncle getting a ticket here.
Please do.
And taking a look at what that ticket cost. Back in the days, we used to stuff your money in and dump it in the little receptacle on Main Street. And thought the amount was adorable, and tipped the parking meter as a result. So, I mean, I think, is there a tax to coming into Brattleboro? If you frame it like that, yeah, everybody avoids it. But, I mean, I wrote Easy Pass on my car, and, at the end of a trip, could find myself paying $50 in tolls in places I didn't even want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you could be right. I'm just registering my skepticism on that.
I sort of share in the skepticism a little bit, but trying to find a way for the users of it goes back to like the loss of meals and rooms tax from the motel program, right? That's a big hit. Like, we've lost a few hotels in our area that aren't for people who can pay those taxes. So we lose that money. And for all the tractor trailers that use Route 9 and like literally plow divots in our roads as they drive over them, is there a way to recoup that so that we can allocate that funding towards those road repairs and the upkeep and dare I say, like, safe bike lanes and better road safety and things like that? I think that there is. Unwieldy, and going back to my statement, is it something that we can, small enough to get a win on? I don't know.
I mean, Easy Pass has an axle rate, right? Like, you get charged per axle, so if you were doing it for tractor trailers, you can equate that to axles.
And yes, the other two on the lower property taxes list, I'm not totally sure what more limitations on exempt properties means. If it means sort of like narrowing the criteria for properties to become exempt, I'm not sure that one's for me. And then the additional 1% local option tax, in theory maybe, but looking at the deal that Stowe got or almost got, that looked like a real bad deal. So I'd want to, it would have to be at a pretty good rate, I think, to justify adding another 1%. So for me, because I think at some point, next meeting, our conversation is going to be turning this into a probably shorter list that all five of us, or the three of us, I suppose, agree on. So I think it's worth talking about the ones we're not sure about, as well as the ones we do like.
I've got one.
Yes.
So something I really think would be great for Brattleboro would be resources to support the accountability docket. Like that's what happened in Burlington. And a standing drug docket in Brattleboro, like a drug court that is in our town. We really need that to help people who are the crossover between criminal behavior and drug addiction.
So is the accountability docket the traveling one that goes from court to court and sort of?
No, this would be setting up a new docket in Brattleboro for a limited time to focus on moving the backlog through.
Yeah, that's what I.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it would be permanent for, say, 6 months or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so 5 days a week.
Yeah, the only one I wasn't, well, so my two thoughts on this one. What's the address liability for landlords with illegal activities one? The 6th bullet point.
It's sort of, I think it was the old way that we were talking about the next bullet, so those I think can be kind of merged or something.
So, and my thought on the.
And the no trespass, it just lost. It made it got shut down.
I mean, this stuff's so
Senate.
hard for me to follow because it changed so many
Landlord-tenant
times.
bill, true,
Yeah.
but that's back to the drawing board for the
Yeah.
next biennium. So that's an opportunity if that's a priority.
So my other thought in this section is on that one. I like the idea of giving landlords tools to deal with bad tenants and bad situations. I think for me personally and also politically, the way forward is to couple that with strengthening renters' rights for good tenants. Because there are all these, somebody buys a building and wants to do something with it, and now 6 households don't have housing in this market. So I think there is room to strengthen both sides, and I think that's a way to get a political win, possibly.
Well, and frankly,
one.
it was largely Republicans that voted down H772 because of modifications that were made. So it's not like they were like, we don't want landlords to be able to trespass people that are creating, doing illegal.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that I am unable to parse or follow
but-
at the state level.
For me, it was culture shock to realize that rent control and just basic tenants' rights are considered controversial in America. That was an interesting learning curve. From where I'm from.
Yep.
Yet you moved.
I did move. Yep.
And then
And
found out later.
it was great. And I had a lot of really fun experiences moving down here and trying to find housing. Yep.
The 3 last bullet points on prioritized transportation, I don't know that I have a problem with them. I don't know that I know about them or understand them fully or what the implications are. So in terms of fighting for them, I'm a little unsure. But certainly more transportation funding, more public transportation, more bike and walk infrastructure. I support all of those things.
More of the good stuff, less of the bad stuff.
That would be a great slogan.
Could you talk us, well, we're 1 minute away, but I would like more information at some point about the, under building housing, further limit appeals of housing projects within Tier 1. We want to talk about that tonight or another time?
We don't need to stop now. I just wanted to check in at 9:15 with the board and see how everyone's doing. How is everyone doing?
I think we've taken a really good first pass. It's been a lively, spontaneous discussion. It's really great to hear all the board members' ideas and thoughts. I think we could call it good for now, Chair.
Well, also, that's the decision for the board as a whole also, if it wants to. I guess I would suggest that a good process would be for people with questions, yes, we'll go to the public. But, so for questions like that in the intervening 2 weeks, we can send to John.
Yep.
So, what does this bullet point mean, et cetera, and then we can come back. And our current plan is at the next meeting to come back and look at a refined list and make some decisions.
And then maybe in July sometime, you might invite the
Yeah.
legislator delegation to come. So.
And then sort of present these to them and
Yeah,
make our
and, well,
case
and
and
hear
talk about
what
them.
they've done and what they're working on too.
Great. Okay, let's open it up to the public. Ivan, and then Kate.
Unbelievable. Everybody in the audience has something to say.
The entire audience has its hand raised.
In person.
Ivan Hennessy. I have a suggestion which I think will be quite controversial. So I'm glad that it's towards the end and everyone can go away and think about it and hopefully.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was funny phrasing.
Yeah, no, but I want zero discussion on it so that everyone can think about it and come back and agree with me. For many years, there have been bills put forth in the state legislature to decriminalize sex work, and I think that it intersects with a lot of issues that have been discussed, and I think that pairing it with aggressive criminal record expungement on that issue would be a relatively straightforward. It's always introduced as a sort of a standalone thing. It's a single issue. Last biennium it was S54, I think. I may be mistaken on that number. But it's a discrete thing that interacts with a bunch of other issues that are being addressed, and it has been introduced and sort of failed to proceed many times. I think there's an opportunity with a little bit of push.
Thank you. Kate?
Kate O'Connor, Brattleboro. I'm really glad you're talking about this. It's only June. I wish you wouldn't, there's no need for you to rush and make your priorities right now. The legislature isn't coming back until January. I watched, like, the people that, put NPR or whatever it is on the background. I had the Vermont legislature on the background for the last 5 months. I think you need to hear from the legislators on what they did and what bills got stalled and what are moving forward before you folks set your priorities. They just passed a huge housing homelessness bill. The renters, the tenant landlord thing did fall at the last minute. It was a tie vote. And so I think you're being premature and rushing and thinking you have to tell the legislators what to do. There's an election coming up too. I think you should have them come in here, tell them what happened, tell them what you're thinking, and get a sense of, are you folks on the right? Are you even talking about things that are going to be coming up in the legislature? You don't have to tell them any of this until after November. And I say this because Brattleboro, I think you need to decide how you're going to use your voice. I watched committees and all the committees and everything. Brattleboro's voice, there were sometimes I was screaming at the Zoom, thinking, I wish somebody from Brattleboro was there, because you folks could have had a really compelling voice, especially some of the landlord-tenant stuff. Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust, Elizabeth Bridgewater, and a tenant did a wonderful job talking about why you need to be able to trespass people. I mean, I was cheering them on. They were great. And I think in addition to just having a list of this is what we want, you got to pick something, one of these things. I mean, it's great to tell the legislators this is what we want, but then you have to decide how you folks can effectively use your voice. I think Brattleboro's voice was missing in the whole homelessness discussion, because we have a compelling story to tell about what the hotel program does to us locally that wasn't there. And I think it could have helped all towns. I know we're represented by the League of Cities and Towns. We have to represent ourselves. So I want you folks to think a little bit more, not just about what's on your list, but about, legislation that comes up that's not on your list that might be able to be helpful, and really how you use your voice. Because I think Brattleboro has a compelling story that needs to be told. And it was, again, I was screaming at the TV sometimes thinking, I wish Brattleboro's voice was being heard in this. So I just wouldn't rush and think you have to do this right now and then just tell them in July. They're not going to be back up there till January. So just be thoughtful about it, because I'm glad you're engaged in this, but I think you're doing it too fast.
Thanks, Kate. That's really good feedback. We should consider that.
That's great feedback, Kate. Really wise. Timing is everything, and in an election year particularly, why should we maybe spend our time too early if we're gonna,
Yes, John.
An interesting perspective. I think sooner is helpful for Brattleboro to have a voice in the conversation because VLCT will be working on their priorities statewide over the summer. I've offered to have feedback. They are our lobbyist. They are Brattleboro's lobbyist. We can't afford to have our own lobbyist. If we could, then I think it would be a different conversation. But because they have a certain process, I think being able to weigh in on what the Brattleboro Selectboard finds as a priority sooner rather than later would be very helpful.
I think we should, this is something we should all think about.
Sounds like important context, and it also sounds like it does not limit any of us as individuals to try to glean more knowledge from our legislators either. But
I think that we can do both of these things. I think the idea of having a conversation sooner than later with our legislators would be great, even though there is an election coming up, and we still have 3 state legislators that we know who they are through the end of this year. And we could have that conversation with them and say, here's what we're thinking. What are you thinking? It doesn't have to be a fully fleshed out, these are our 3 bills that we want you to introduce in the next legislative session. It can be a more of that informal information gathering time and putting forth, just letting them in on a little bit on what we've talked about. And then, come January, have another conversation with them, or come whenever, sometime after the November elections, revisit with something maybe a little more fleshed out. I think that we can be meeting both the goals of having something to give Vermont's League of Cities and Towns, as well as having something at an appropriate time for our legislators that's more fleshed out.
Mark this in account two times in one meeting that I agree with Isaac.
I don't like that.
No,
All right.
seriously, I think Kate's got a really good point. We don't need just to jump into this, but I think if we don't just jump into it, all of a sudden that time will be here. So doing a little bit of a strategy and constantly sort of keeping it top of mind and ourselves accountable to the idea is good. And to invite them in to know what we're thinking, because maybe they're already doing it. We don't know. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think we certainly want that end of session meeting with them, at the very least to hear from them about what happened. So let's go to Tara, and then I think we will wrap it up.
Good evening. Do I need to put my camera on? I'm sorry. I really don't. It's a long night for me. Sorry, Tara O'Brien. I live in District 8, and I happen to work at the library, but I'm on leave of absence right now. So I'm calling in as a concerned citizen who watches the events at the library. There happens to be a community conversation with our state legislatures on Saturday morning, 10:30. So they'll be in the area and ready and willing to hear concerns that are related to this matter. So as a concerned citizen, I'm just sharing that information.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, John, do you feel like you have notes?
Yep. Great notes. Thank you very much.
Then I'm looking for a motion.
Before the final motion,
Of course.
I just have one little thing. It's not on it.
Please.
It relates to something that was on our consent agenda regarding the unlicensed dog list. I just want to encourage the public, because I know some of the dogs on this list are now deceased. So you might want to go into the backup materials and just make sure you communicate that to the town office, the town clerk's office, so that you can, just make sure that that's all sorted up.
Thanks, Amanda.
So, public, please look at this list, because you might be on it. I'm thankful I'm not on it, but I could be.
Great, thank you.
I move to adjourn.
There's a motion to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Sign my papers.
Carries 5-0.
Sign my papers.
That pen doesn't work, but
Oh,
please
come
sign my
on now.
papers.
Good work,
Sign
everyone.
it, read that.
Right.
Is that was it?
No, I don't think so. That's not for you.
No.
That's just mine.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you, Seth.
Oh, sorry, John. I'm sorry.
And I make crazy faces like that.
Can I get
Beyond my best.